We're up for business. Hello, everybody. Happy summer. It's really good to see my board colleagues. I don't think I've seen you in a couple of weeks, and that has been okay. Just kidding. It's really good to see everybody. It's really great to see all of you, too. We are excited that you're here. I am going to call the school board meeting to order for Tuesday, June 17th. Ms. Rios, please take the roll.
Yes. Ms. Alonso?
Here. Nicely done.
Perfect timing.
Well done.
Ms. Campos?
Present.
Mr. Dix?
Here.
Ms. Knox? Here. Ms. Martorano? Dr. Mayberry Mays?
Here.
Ms. Norris?
Here.
We have quorum.
I also want to point out Dr. Roberts, I believe, is online. Is that correct, Ms. Rios? And board member Martorano and Matt Smith are in
China.
Kofu.
Japan. Kofu, Japan.
Japan, yes. So, but we do have two delegations of students that are actually in China.
That's it.
So maybe Dr. Roberts will talk more about that. And hello, Dr. Roberts, I heard your voice. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. I would like to make a friendly amendment to table item consent E24, the election list, until our July 8th meeting due to a system error. The lists are incorrect. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with the friendly amendment?
So moved.
Campbell, second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dix and a second by Ms. Campos. Any discussion or questions? Okay. I just want to point out, if for some reason we need to approve this prior to July 8th, if you could let us know and we could do something electronically if we had to. Okay, thank you. Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 6-0. Next on the agenda is the public forum. Dr. Mayberry Mays.
We provide speakers at the forum an opportunity to address the board for up to 3 minutes regarding items that are not on the board agenda and up to 5 minutes for an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak during any portion of the business meeting, please email rosa.rios@dmschools.org. The same speaking protocols apply to all individuals who wish to address the board. Speakers will be called individually, and we ask that they state their name and zip code prior to providing comments. Students and minors do not need to provide their address. Guests of the board are encouraged to speak to matters relating to the program, services, and operations of DMPS. Please remember that Iowa law prohibits us from discussing specific employees or their job performance. We ask all speakers to avoid references to personalities or character attacks, as those types of comments do not contribute to the purpose for which this public forum exists. The use of inappropriate language will not be tolerated, and individuals choosing to do so will be gavelled out of order and asked to excuse themselves from the premises or escorted out by district security. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in a discussion with public forum speakers, as it is our obligation to discuss only matters posted in the public agenda for sake of transparency and opportunity afforded to all community stakeholders. Matters requiring attention will receive appropriate staff and/or board follow-up at a time after the meeting. Thank you for your participation, and we appreciate your feedback and input.
Ms. Rios, do we have any speakers for the public forum?
We do. First up, I'll call Nancy Yeremeyeva Henderson. Yes, you can approach the podium.
Hello. I came here about 3 years ago, 2.5, to talk about Metro and some of the problems that they were facing there, and there were a lot, and now we have a lot more things to celebrate. A lot of good things have happened, but still some issues that I hope we could maybe consider and resolve. I'm a parent of a child at Greenwood Elementary, brought one of them, and I am a teacher at Ruby Van Meter. I'm a master teacher with over 20 years of experience, and I've dedicated my career to this district. I'm a special education teacher there, Strat, too. And some of the problems I'm facing is with MetroCare as an employee. One of the problems is I've been on a waiting list every year I've had it for months. This year I did not get in until after Thanksgiving break. It forced me to miss work. It also forced me to have to leave my, at the time, 7 and 9-year-old. I taught them how to walk home, almost a mile. And I'd have to leave them home from 2:30 to 4:30. I could not find anyone available for months who would fill that position. I don't have family in Iowa. I'm from New York. Also, PD days. We do not have Metro every day that I have to work. Last year, 14 out of 16. This year, 10 out of 18 were covered. So that's almost half that I had not full day care. I was able to arrange care for all, but on when I wasn't, I called HR. I requested a day off, personal leave. I was told it was mandatory. I had to go. So I was put in a position where I had to choose between leaving my kids, who were at that point 8 and 9, alone from 7:30 to 4:30 or be fired. And so I left them alone, but wasn't pleased. So as I'm looking at Metro, and some of the thoughts that I have is that our teachers and our families in this district are very important to us, and if we want to continue to have them stay and not lose our parents and not lose our teachers, especially teachers who are on a shortage and hard to find, supporting them through childcare in their districts would be great. I have a letter for you guys. I also have the one I wrote last time I came, and so if you go down and you look at it, you'll notice that a lot of the things did get changed. We have a calendar now, which is helpful. This year, we did bring the registration up to the beginning, so it was on the last day, almost like that last week of school, where before it was 2 weeks before school. So you would register and then find out you were declined or on a waiting list, and I would already be back at work, and I would have 2 weeks for my kids. This year we have more. I have not heard back, but that's a plus. The unfortunate thing is the day they did their open enrollment was that mandatory day that I had to go to work. And so I was unable to get up there right at noon to register on that first come, first serve. So I don't know where I am in the waiting list, but it's probably not high because I had to wait for my lunch hour to get that going. They're redoing the cost on it this year. I don't know if that'll be good or bad, but that's another way to maybe help them get some more staff. They're making it a full-time, so you're paying by the week so that they can manage their numbers. Less flexibility for parents, but maybe it'll help them be able to get the program better set. My other thing that I recommended was considering using some of our high school kids. I don't think that's been considered, but there's so many of them so close at Roosevelt, or older brothers and sisters. So I just wanted to let you guys know to maybe think about Metro and think about maybe what we could do to help our staff that have children that both work in district and have kids in schools.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. And I'll,
Those are all the speakers I have.
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is our district recognitions. Dr. Roberts, are there any recognitions today?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Good evening, board meeting attendees and community. I am currently in Washington, D.C. with all the DMPS district leaders on official business as we continue to move steadily towards achieving that district of excellence that we're all working towards. But as we continue to bring forward recognitions at our school board meetings, of course, where we celebrate the successes and accomplishments of students and staff throughout the Des Moines Public Schools, this evening, I'm pleased to share two recognitions. Tonight's recognitions really is an example of our continued commitment around our strategic priority number 5, and that's cultivating community and collaboration. In this instance, I want you to understand that one of the most valued resources from the honorees tonight and their peers is their generosity of time, care, and love for our students and our school communities. Each day in our buildings, there are caring adults who volunteer their time around instructional support, cafeteria duties, crossing guard responsibilities in any weather, maintaining our food pantries, reading to and with our students, and the list goes on. And so tonight, I'm truly honored and excited because we are fortunate to have 2 of these volunteers with us, and they are certainly worthy of this public recognition. And I'm going to ask that our volunteers, along with their principals, we have volunteer Annette Cookman of Edmonds Elementary and I think she is there with either Principal Jeanette Rittman or Associate Principal Kelly too. And from Perkins Elementary, volunteer Patty Jones with Michael Derrick to be recognized and come to the podium and do so.
I have a few words to say, if that's okay. All right. All right, good evening. Tonight I have the honor of telling you about Annette Cookman. Annette has been a volunteer at Edmonds for the past 12 years. She embodies the very best of what it means to give, to guide, and to be there when it matters most. Annette is a valued member and recruiter for our one-on-one mentoring program that we have at Edmonds. She religiously shows up every Tuesday to mentor students. She's organized a group of fellow mentors from her community at Ativo Trails. Annette has mentored students as they travel from 3rd to 4th to 5th grades to 6th grade next year. Thank you. She is a consistent, caring, encouraging, and fun adult that the kids can count on seeing every single week. The students she mentors love spending time with her. Mentoring is only one of the things that she does at Edmonds, though. She also organizes her community, again at Ativo Trails, to pop popcorn the last Friday of every month for our students, staff, and families. She helps with Ativo Trail community members, helps provide a homemade or handmade tie blanket and book for every single kindergartner at Edmonds every December. She and her team at Ativo Trail, but she, again, is the organizer, the cheerleader, the jack of all trades. She helped organize and complete a sock drive for our homeless community. She also donates school supplies and rallies her community to do the same. Annette is one of those rare people who gives her time, money, and heart without hesitation. She's the kind of person who reminds us that selflessness, love, and hard work make a huge impact on our students, families, and staff. So Annette, thank you for making a difference every day, and please join me in thanking Annette and showing her our appreciation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Derrick, principal at Perkins Elementary. I've got Patty here, who is absolutely amazing, lest I forget her husband Larry as well, because he helps out as well. They come as a package deal, which is amazing for us. One of the big things we focus on at all schools, specifically Perkins, I can speak for Perkins, is we want kind students. We talk about kindness all the time, so all the work that Patty does in terms of volunteering, she does it with compassion, with kindness, with love, and everything that she does, everything she touches. She supports Natasha, who's our success case manager here. She's split between 2 schools, so if we have deliveries come in for our food pantry, she's always there, whether Natasha's there or not. And if you've seen some of those deliveries, you will shake your head like, how are we going to get all that in there up the stairs? Patty is amazing, and so is Larry. They do all the projects that need to get fixed. Our little library got damaged, our outside food pantry. They're fixing it, they're replacing it. She's done lunch duty. It's what I want of all paid staff is when something needs to get done, let's get it done. And she doesn't even get paid, and she is there helping out wherever is needed. It's amazing to have that kind of generosity along with the kindness. One of the things I thought about driving up here was my little personal mission statement for a number of years now has just been to hopefully when I interact with people, they feel a little bit better after spending time with me. That is Patty Jones. You can't interact with her for a minute without feeling better after having talked with her, because she's going to make you feel more positive, make you feel cared for and loved and listened to. So Patty, thank you, and Larry, for all that y'all do for Perkins Elementary. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette, Patty, and Larry. And thanks a lot, of course, to Jeanette, Kelly, and Michael for recognizing and honoring and creating and inviting space for these volunteers. If you haven't already listened to the latest edition of the podcast that continues to be one of the fastest growing educational podcasts in the land, the Become Here Project, the DMPS podcast, be sure to download it. Madam Chair, that concludes this evening's recognitions.
Really just appreciate the volunteerism and calling out the wonderful volunteers we have. And for anybody listening or anybody in the room, our schools need volunteers, and we will welcome you with open arms. And hopefully you listen to this moment and the impact that you can have on the lives of our young people and the people that work in our buildings, and think about if you can volunteer as well. So thank you very much for volunteering. Okay, we are now going to move to goals and guardrails, board reports. So board colleagues, I am going to facilitate a conversation today on both Goal 1 and Goal 2. Goal 1, look, we are having the opportunity to celebrate and talk about some of the great progress made in our academic goals and student outcomes. And so, Dr. Roberts, do you want to frame the conversation, or should we just dig in?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to do so. Certainly, as our sort of new protocol that we're getting some additional at-bats around is implemented, I want us to certainly offer an opportunity to teammates who are much closer to the work. And so I will ask that Kelly and Ali for both goals 1 and 2 introduce some of our principals and their teams, whether they're teachers or students, who will speak a little bit to the work that is happening that aligns to each of these goals that we will discuss tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I'm so excited, along with Kelly Schofield, to be able to share and celebrate some success with goals 1 and 2. And in honor of that tonight, we have 2 outstanding elementary principals, Tracy Shipley from Riverwoods Elementary School and Jenny Inman, from Greenwood Elementary School. And I'm gonna let them share some of their action steps and the progress they've made to help us get closer to these board goals.
Thank you for the opportunity to get up here and share all the progress that Greenwood has made this year in celebration of meeting both the main board goal 1 and the 2 sub-criteria. So with that, it was no easy feat. Behind me are some members of our teaching staff, our coach Amanda Gomes, a 2nd grade teacher, Miss Clow, and Miss Cox, our ELL and interventionist. While these are only a couple of the faces of the work, I do also want to honor all the staff that couldn't make it tonight, as it's been a really big collaborative effort. To start, I just want to share kind of where we've been. Over the last 4 to 5 years, we've done solid implementations of EL and IM. We routinely have analyzed data. We have intervention systems in place. But prior to this year, we really weren't making the gains that we were hoping to make, so we wanted to tighten up a few things. With that, one of the key pieces was humanizing our student data, meaning that our students were not just percentage points on a scale, but we knew exactly who they were, what they needed, and what we could provide to help them grow. So one big move the last couple of years has really been to humanize the data, ensuring every single student who is high risk or at some risk are receiving a targeted, explicit intervention. We also weekly progress monitor students, and then at least once a month look at the data to make adjustments to our instruction. Another thing that has been really helpful to ensure that our students are accessing high-quality core instruction is a cadence this year that we've done in PLCs, where we come together once a week to plan either a math or a literacy lesson. We really dive into the essential standards. We look at and think about what are the deeper level questions. And the most important piece that we've really shifted to is monitoring for student evidence of learning toward that target. This has been in alignment to the GLEAM instructional framework that we've been using over the last 2 years. But we've also added in Wednesdays, going in and observing in classrooms, and then meeting on Thursdays to get teacher reflection and feedback, and then revisit whether or not students met the goal for the lesson. So this slide you can see is just kind of an example of our cadence and also the questions that we discuss in PLC, what we're looking for, and then when we're doing reflecting. Teachers reported on their individual development plans that was a really impactful process for them, so we will continue that next year as well. The other big piece of the success of our growth was really making sure all of our systems and materials were in alignment. Part of that was our K-2 classrooms are pretty big, and so we leveraged interventionists, academic interventionists to mirror the course so that we could lower class sizes and foundational skills. So they mirrored, and then support staff who had time in their schedule pushed in to help support fluency efforts and read with kids and practice skills. So it was really an all hands on deck approach. We also did some shifting to our master schedule to make sure that everything was very intentionally aligned so that all of our instructional support was maximized. With the new addition of being a title school last year, we were able to receive an allocation of an extra interventionist. With that, we then had more manpower, and so we got some support from some community donors to get the research-based intervention materials. That was what was missing in previous years. So we were able to purchase some really robust intervention materials and support resources that could go along with the instructional allocation we had. From a professional development side, our teachers engaged in science of reading professional development, and then several of our staff members voluntarily joined the letters cohort to just get a little bit deeper dive into science of reading and figure out how that work then aligned to the district work of science of reading. And then as Dr. Roberts shared just that importance of volunteer engagement. We leveraged support staff and volunteers to just read with kids as much as we could. So, 10 minutes in the morning, right when they came in, they read with a staff member who didn't have a classroom at the time. So anytime we could support fluency, we tried to align those opportunities and then have volunteers support during foundational skills. The other important piece was just that intentional student application. So we tried to really be intentional in aligning what students were doing when they weren't at small group. With that, we did do a pilot of Lexia Core 5. It's a program I'm really familiar with from having ran it previously when we had it several years ago. That was a missing component that provided differentiated practice to students on literacy skills at the foundational level, but from a kindergarten through 5th grade span. So our students were able to engage in the skill practice that they needed at their level, not necessarily at the grade level, which then helped them apply those skills to their small groups or to texts they were reading. We also did second semester incorporate Amira into that.
I was just going to ask,
Yeah.
actually, so is there a difference, so Lexia versus Amira, can you just explain to me and maybe others the difference?
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear about this piece of it.
Yes, so Lexia is more of a skill practice. The students take a differentiated, an auto assessment, and then it determines which skills they need, and then it engages them in kind of like a gamified setting of practicing those skills. It's all standards aligned to science of reading. It also then, when they get stuck on a concept, flags for the teacher then to provide some offline instruction. Now, Amira, we're still learning. That has been really powerful for teachers because they can actually hear how the students are reading and catch some things that maybe they might not have otherwise. That's a growth area, though, for us specifically in the data side of things for that. That's a new lift. This semester was just getting it out and getting used to it. Next year, we'll be able to really hopefully dive into the data side of it.
Ask you to expand just a teeny bit more,
Yes.
only because there's been so much discussion around AI and skills building in schools, right? And I know there's a role of AI, in schools and maybe not. And so just dig a little bit more. Like, does that mean, do you have enough, when you talk about the data side, if it is a tool that works, right? This idea of using AI to support skill building,
Yeah.
customized skill building, what does growth look like? Is it more, I'm going to say, like handhelds? Is it more training for teachers? Is it, just talk a little bit more about
From
that.
the
That's
Amira,
okay.
From the
Yeah.
Amira side?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah. Amir or Lexia
Yeah.
4-5, whichever.
For Lexia, the purpose for us this year was just to get them some differentiated practice at their level that we maybe didn't have the materials or the teacher time to get them, knowing that then we could provide that intentional instruction in small group. This was practice at their level. To be completely fair.
It helps you to scale. Like when we talk about scaling or scaffolding, scaffolding,
Yes.
this is like a tool to help you scaffold. So to help children who need to read more advanced or children who need more practice at a different level than where the majority are.
Yes,
Correct.
absolutely. So it, for example, we have some fifth graders working in Lexia at a second grade level. That's not necessarily where their teacher can provide explicit instruction in the day, so they get a little bit more practice there. It also serves as an extension, so students who need beyond grade level practice. We had second and third graders working on morphology and a lot of fifth grade content. It provides them extra practice without needing explicit instruction. We did have a couple students even finish and then work on the middle school platform. As far as Amira, to be completely fair, our goal was to get in and use it and do like the weekly, use it as like just to get used to it. I can't speak to the data that it's giving us it's not guiding our instruction right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. A few other additions, we did add more robust decodable readers. Our first grade teachers used EL 2.0. There was just access to some more decodables. And then our support staff just did some more phonemic awareness routines with Hegarty. The other important piece was then student goal setting. We wanted our students to see themselves as readers, and taking a screener 3 times a year is not always easy for them to like monitor how they're doing on a week-to-week cadence. So they, in a lot of classrooms, track their weekly progress when they were progress monitoring. We set grade level growth goals. I know this is hard to read. This is our second grade level data for the end of the year. They together thought they were going to grow 614 points. That was their goal, and they grew 1,156 points. So we've also leveraged that self-efficacy for students. Ms. Cloud does a really nice job of any time her students make growth, she sends them on a little parade throughout the building to show growth. And so our kids are really excited to celebrate their wins with everybody, big or small. So just how that has transferred, we were not trying to move our persistently at-risk kids miraculously to proficiency. Our focus has always been, we want all of our students to make typical or aggressive growth. It was the only way the achievement gap was going to close. So we really put a focus on that this year, and 73% of our K-3 students made typical or aggressive growth on the early reading assessment and the CBMR. So the majority of our kids who made growth made aggressive growth, so that shows us that these actions are aligned and we're closing the achievement gap. So that was really exciting for us. These are just our year-over-year board goals. You can kind of see in yellow, that is our fourth grade cohort last year. So the 23-24 school year, 71% of our second and third graders were meeting CBM benchmark. That is usually an indicator on ISASP. So fourth grade ISASP this year, not only did we maintain, but we grew 11% in proficiency on the ISASP, which is a much more comprehensive measure. So that was really exciting for us. And then as far as the board goal 1A and 1B, the navy blue is the first grade cohort moving to second. We did a lot of reflection last year on what happened, and we found that we had kids in different interventions, but maybe it wasn't all aligned. They were going to this group for something and this group for something else. So we really made sure that wherever they were going, everything was in tight alignment, that the skills weren't all in isolation. And so we then came in at 52.2% and grew 20% this year of second and third grade students proficient on meeting benchmark on CBM. And then our first grade data is the one that we really celebrate with our efforts to make sure there's not an achievement gap before they even really get started. They came in at 40% of students meeting benchmark. We really were very intentional in all of our actions. Our first grade teachers worked really, really hard at making sure everything was aligned, from the student experience to what they were teaching to who they were going with, and what extras they were getting. And we went from 40% in the fall to 74.4% in the spring. So our work is...
Applause.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Thank you. So our work is never done. We have already made plans for next year to continue with intervention right out of the gate. In August, we have our groups ready and everything ready to go so that we can continue and not have 6 weeks of assessment waiting for assessment data. We are going to focus in 3-5. We did a lot with fluency and morphology and vocab because our auto reading scores were low, and now those went really high. So now we're going to work on applying that in complex text and writing to get the A reading side of it up. So that, and then just one adjustment for foundational skills, we're going to add in some U-Fly material just to get differentiation for our most at-risk kids to see if that would make a difference in addition to the EL microphase.
Can you say that
instruction.
again? Just that last part.
The U-Fly.
Yeah. What is
So
that?
it's a foundational skills curriculum. We're just going to add to it. It's based out of Florida, the Florida Center for Reading Research, similar to EL, the EL skills block, but a little bit more robust. We've got more decodable readers to come with it. It's really big in manipulating sounds with, and then specific routines. So we are going to test a hypothesis just with our persistently at-risk and at-risk students to see if we try that, will we get different results? So, yeah. So thank you for your time.
Board colleagues, do you have any questions?
What are you missing still? What's the thing that could accelerate this, that could pour some gasoline on the fire?
In full transparency?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dr. Roberts isn't here either. So.
Greenwood is a small school, and there are a lot of small schools. We don't have a lot of funding, and so, for example, title money I used for staffing, and so we don't have funds to purchase materials. And so up until this year, we've been using free, the FastBridge resources from the state. We have a generous donor that kind of shifted focus from library books to intervention materials. So I think I think that is probably the barrier, is having high quality material. We have very high quality staff. It's the high quality materials to go along with it.
Can you be even more specific? So I don't know what that means, right?
Yeah,
So when you say
sure.
high quality materials, I think, what does that mean?
I should specify for intervention. So buildings who have a lot of title funds are afforded the opportunity to purchase like 95% material. It's different materials that are vetted by our district.
Got it.
And so that has just been a little bit of a barrier. We were able to work around it and get creative with some funding. But that would be, I'm not the only building in that position. It's harder when you're a smaller school and you don't have as much funds to prioritize where your dollars go. So that would be, if our focus for the state is on intervention and catching up our persistently at-risk and at-risk students, ensuring that there's an equal amount of resources to do that across district would be helpful.
Great. Thanks. Other questions?
No, I just
I know.
I just wanted to say how much I appreciate your focus on having aggressive or growth for all students, growth or whatever it is.
Yeah.
For all students.
Thank
and
you.
I think that
I just love your examples around scaffolding, and I think that's just such a wonderful thing for us to hear how that occurs in schools. So thank you for growing all of our students wherever they're at, meeting their needs individually.
Thank you. It's a team effort. I just get to lead it.
I did have one question.
go ahead.
Yes.
And my question was really more for the overall plan, but I noticed that Greenwood follows some similar trends to the district, and there tends to be a summer slide that happens between the fall and the spring semesters. Do you have any recommendations, or what is maybe Greenwood doing to address that gap? The instruction's clearly working throughout the school year, but then during that summer, something's happening where you're losing a percentage of proficiency?
Yes, so that was one noticing we've seen from year to year. This year, with the help of my instructional coach, one of the things we did was sent home all the progress monitoring data and graphs with families, and any student who was persistently at risk or at risk, we also sent home decodable readers just to kind of practice at their level. We don't have there just isn't a lot of tutoring options and summer school to kind of keep them going. Those would be great if those options, if funding, if we were in a better funding situation than we are. So we've just sent home some reading opportunities. We're going to open our library also a couple times this summer. I learned how to be a librarian, so we can open that up just to get our kids access to books. Our biggest priority over the summer is just to keep them reading, and then to get them in those support groups, those instructional groups right out of the gate once we're back.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice summer.
Thank you. You got it.
Okay, and then we have Tracy Shipley from Riverwoods Elementary School.
Board Chair Norris, members of the board, Dr. Roberts, and guests. I'm Aaron Barr, Associate Principal at Riverwoods Elementary, and I'll let Tracy introduce herself.
Tracy Shipley, principal at Riverwoods for the last 11 years.
I forgot I was supposed to say that part. 6 years for me this year. So, thank you for having us tonight. We've come here to share some of the success that we've seen at Riverwoods and to highlight how investing in our teachers' knowledge and skills has played a big role in helping us get there. We serve around 500 students and their families at Riverwoods Elementary School. That number's held actually pretty consistent over the last few years. My first year was the year that we went home for COVID and didn't come back. So in that time, we've been right around 500, pretty steady at Riverwoods. About half of our students are multilingual and receive English language learning support in addition to their regular classroom instruction. At home, actually, 48% of our families primarily speak English and 47% primarily speak Spanish. So we really truly are a bilingual and multicultural community at Riverwoods. Of the 240 multilingual learners that we have at Riverwoods, 59% were proficient this spring, and that was an increase of 16%. We were very proud of that. Even more proud of the 35 multilingual learners that we were able to exit from ELL services. We were excited last year for 27, and so 35 this year we were even more excited for. We know as they get older that becomes more and more difficult for them to do. We're also committed to making sure that every student gets what they need to succeed. About 10% of our students are also supported through special education services, and so we're also proud to share that our FAST data shows that 58% of our students with IEPs have demonstrated typical and aggressive growth this year on their ELA assessments. Tracy's going to talk a little bit about our efforts this year and how we're pushing that growth forward.
Okay, we need to cheer for those. Those are great. Those are great.
Some highlights on our journey. Over the past few years, we've invested in training of the delivery of instructional strategies and pushed our teachers to increase their look at data to guide their instruction, much like many schools in Des Moines Public Schools. While this has led to pockets of growth, the overall student outcomes remained inconsistent. Feeling that we hadn't fully satisfied ourselves with our data, staff and administration continued to ask, what can we do to improve our reading scores? Our instructional coaches identified letters, language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling training offered by the state through Lexia as a powerful next step. In January of 2024, 40 of our instructional teachers, led by our instructional coaches, formed a cohort to begin a rigorous 4-semester, 60-hour course grounded in the science of reading. This fall, we will wrap up the last 2 units of comprehension and writing and complete this in the February of 2026. Although the staff at Riverwoods had already developed a basic understanding of SOR, the letters pretest revealed our average score of 65%, showing gaps in our shared knowledge. In response to this opportunity, our staff jumped in, willing to grow. Through the partnership with the Department of Education and the support of the district curriculum leads, formerly Kelly Schofield and now Allison Salo, we've leveraged every bit of professional development time allotted in the calendar and even personal time to learn, collaborate, implement, and reflect together. We're proud to share that our most recent staff post-test scores for completed units averaged 91%, showing significant professional growth in knowledge and a commitment to evidence-based reading instruction. To be clear, LETTERS is not a curriculum. It is a knowledge that equips educators with tools to understand how children learn to read, why some struggle, and how to support them effectively. Through this training, our staff has not just learned new strategies, they are redefining their approach to reading instruction based on the most current proven research. While the learning has been the foundational piece for our staff, the collaborative discussions, the systematic lesson structures and routines, and ongoing coaching for implementation has been paramount to the collective growth, and most importantly, to the outcomes for our students. We are seeing promising gains in the foundational skills that our students are gaining and becoming stronger readers. Here are some additional pieces of data. Overall, K-5 FAST composite at Riverwoods shows significant growth, moving from 48% proficient in the fall to 61% in the spring, a percentage of 13% increase. Interim Goal 1B shows 69% of first grade students are proficient, 4% higher than the district goal set for 2027. Interim Goal 1A shows 58% of our second and third grade students are proficient, 12% higher than our current goal and only 6 percentage points away from our spring of 2027 goal. To be honest, the trajectory that we're on is exciting and our staff is eager to go. The learning on this journey has not been without challenges. We have had to reprioritize our time, our efforts, being focused on our reading goals because our current professional development calendar and school schedule do not fully allow for the depth of training and follow-up needed. More time for collaborative planning, on-the-job coaching, and ongoing comprehensive professional development is necessary to support lasting improvements. In closing, our students are experiencing the impact firsthand. They are proud, they are motivated, and they are increasingly more confident in themselves and their reading abilities, laying a foundation for lifelong academic success and the love of learning. As teachers' knowledge has grown, so has teacher confidence, leading to more targeted instruction, fewer referrals to the child find evaluation process, and noticeable improvements in feedback and instructional response. Staff have shared greater job satisfaction, which has positively influenced teacher retention and collaboration. Riverwood staff knew that the journey through LETTERS would be challenging. They also firmly believed that it would be worth their efforts. Here's what a few of our teachers had to say about their learning experience.
One of our teachers shared with us, LETTERS has significantly deepened my understanding of the science of reading, giving me the tools and confidence to better support my students in becoming stronger readers, increasing their comprehension skills, and being able to write about what they've learned. I've learned how to identify and address specific literacy needs in my classroom, combined with the consistent support of my administration and instructional coaches. I've been able to implement these strategies effectively, and the results speak for themselves. This year, I've achieved the best student data in my 7 years of teaching third grade, 70% proficient on fast CBM reading, a testament to how impactful this professional learning has been. From our next teacher, as a veteran kindergarten teacher with years of experience behind me, I used to believe I had a solid handle on teaching children how to read. I had my go-to routines, favorite read-alouds, and strategies that seemed to work well enough, but I sometimes felt unsure about why certain students struggled with reading, even when I was doing everything I knew to help them. Just a brief timeout. This is one of our teachers that gets pretty amazing results every year. So coming from her, it means quite a lot. LETTERS didn't just give me new strategies, it gave me understanding. It opened my eyes to the science behind how children learn to read, and just as importantly, what happens when they don't. I began to understand the critical role that phonemic awareness, decoding, and language comprehension play in early literacy. Concepts that had once felt like buzzwords suddenly became meaningful, actionable, and necessary. My instruction is far more intentional. I know how to build a foundation that truly supports all learners. I'm able to identify gaps early and address them with confidence. I've watched students who used to struggle begin to connect the dots, and that's incredibly rewarding. Perhaps most importantly, letters reminded me that even after years in the classroom, I still can learn and grow. This training has made me a better teacher, and for that, I'm deeply grateful. So one last thing, given the mic and the podium, we really need to thank the staff that we have at Riverwoods for coming together and making it happen every day for the students and families that we serve. It's a hard job and people don't always get that. And it's an honor and true privilege to work alongside dedicated professional educators like we have, who rise to the occasion every time and who continually go above and beyond what's expected. We want to take just a quick moment for the thanks and recognition that they do deserve. And we do have one of our staff members here with us tonight. So. All right, so again, Board Chair Norris, members of the board, Dr. Roberts, and guests, thanks for having us here tonight, and thanks for your time and efforts as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I know I just have one. I was really excited to hear about the students that are exiting out of ELL services. To what do you attribute that success? Are there specific tools or strategies or curricular materials that are helping you with that?
One of the things I want to highlight about the Riverwoods staff is that they're always eager for professional development. And so that has been our mission, to really grow our teachers. And so prior to, and I think part of the reason why 40 staff members were on board with having a letters cohort is because we are a Be Glad certified school. So years ago, pre-COVID, our entire staff was trained in guided language acquisition. And so there are strategies that are in place to expose students to vocabulary in accelerated ways, strategies that are utilized to create entry points and access for all students, whether they're multilingual or struggle in other ways to access content. And I would say that having your classroom teachers trained and not just your multilingual teachers trained has been very beneficial because we're maximizing every opportunity for learning.
Great, thank you. Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Schofield, the Middle School Director of Teaching and Learning, and now we're going to move on to middle school, which is what our board goal 2 is mostly focused on. And I'm here to introduce one of our outstanding leaders in middle school. I could have chosen almost any of our middle school leaders to present tonight about what they've done to improve student outcomes at the middle school because we've had so much growth. But Brody, I did ask Amy to come. Brody has shown increased student outcomes in every student measure, from ISASP to FastBridge in each of the grade levels, and also exiting students from ELPA 21. That's something that we're really proud of in middle school. We've worked collectively together to start building language-rich classrooms and have disciplinary literacy happening. And so Amy's going to speak a little bit about how she's implemented these things at Brody to see the outcomes they've had.
Thank you. I'm Amy Lau. This is I'm just finished my first school year at Brody Middle School. So let's start with some data. Kelly shared a little bit, but I do want to lift up a little bit more. So as part of the ESSA legislation and the state of Iowa's school improvement process, Brody is being monitored in the following demographics: our Hispanic population, Black and African Americans, and students receiving free and reduced lunch, which is our low-income students. And we have significantly improved in all of these areas on FastBridge. We also have exciting news to share when it comes to our ELL students at Brody. Almost 62% of our ELL students improved on their overall ELPA 21 scores. Almost 10% of our ELL students passed the ELPA 21 and exited the program. And growth for our multilingual learners and students learning English on ISASP is also very exciting. The average growth of a 7th grader on our ELA and math ISASP was 20 points for our multilingual learners, and our 8th graders grew almost 30 points in both reading and math. This board has also set goals for Brody for ISASP, and we are happy to report that we have exceeded that goal in all areas. Statistically, thank you. Statistically speaking, 8 to 10 points is expected growth for general education students on ISASP testing, and our preliminary results show that our students have doubled that. This year's academic growth is not the result of a single initiative or individual. It's the result of a united, committed staff who believe deeply in their students and their curriculum, and most importantly, one another. And I think we heard very similar things with Greenwood and Riverwoods as they spoke as well. At Brody, we've worked intentionally to build what research tells us has the greatest impact on student outcomes, and that's collective efficacy. John Hattie defines collective teacher efficacy as the shared belief among teachers that they can positively impact student learning through their collective efforts. We did that by prioritizing attendance on PD days and focusing on creating a culture of learning where we are all agenic learners. I think after winter break, we had 100% of our staff at all of our PDs because the first semester we were very intentional about following up with anyone that was out to make sure that they didn't miss out on the learning. We made sure of that. And I learned that from some other middle school leaders in Des Moines Public. And during that PD time, we focused on deepening our understanding of the development of middle schoolers, literacy is everyone's responsibility, and social emotional learning in all spaces. We engage with Yardsticks, which is a text that focuses on child and adolescent development. And at the beginning of the year, we spent our time learning as a staff about what it means to teach and support our 12 through 14-year-olds in conjunction with a high-quality curriculum that Des Moines provides. This is work that we referenced all year long. We made a commitment that all classrooms are literacy classrooms. We talked a lot about how we read in different content areas and how we support our students' engagement with these kinds of texts. We also developed our understanding of text complexity and how to ensure students are engaging with grade level text. We've focused heavily on academic language, and when I say that, I mean vocabulary. Middle school is a critical time when students transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And mastering academic vocabulary is essential as they begin to read a variety of texts. Through professional development and collaborations, our teachers learn the strategies that were already provided in our high-quality curriculum, but then also we used our ELL specialists to support us in our professional developments every time we had PD and during our PLC time. Our ELL specialists were invaluable partners in this work, helping ensure that all students can access rigorous content, doesn't matter who you are. This shared ownership reflects our belief that language development is everyone's responsibility and that middle school is the right time to close the vocabulary gaps that might otherwise persist. While at the same time, social emotional learning became embedded in our daily routines. SEL was not an add-on. It became the foundation of building safe, predictable environments where middle school students felt comfortable to take academic risks. Strong relationships and inclusive communities are developmentally critical when we think about students of this age. They become more confident and engaged in the work that they're doing with their peers. We did the learning in our professional development, and the most important part of the process was bringing it to life with students, and with that comes accountability. So at Brody, we held ourselves accountable through coaching, instructional rounds, and professional learning communities. Our teachers opened their classrooms not only to leaders, but their peers. They spent time unpacking lessons, observing each other, and reflecting. To further support all of these initiatives, we made 2 big changes at Brody this year, and that was recess for every grade after lunch. And also, yes,
Good job.
the kids love it. And then also no cell phones at any time during the day. Awesome. That means during passing time, at lunch, you can go to the office if you need to make a phone call. And teachers have been very pleased with the result of what that means when you think about students being engaged in the classroom. They've noticed a significant change. So looking ahead into next year, we are very excited to launch a new master's schedule that increases more time for small groups, more opportunities for all teachers to collaborate, and also limits transitions for our students in middle school. We are proud of what's happening at Brody, not just because our scores are improving, but because our approach honors the unique development stage of our kids. We are helping them grow academically, socially, and emotionally in all the ways that we hope that they will move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. May we just ask a couple of quick follow-up questions? So one of the things I'm going to ask you to speak on behalf of all of your fellow middle school principals, what barriers might other principals be having that you would want to highlight in accomplishing these types of results?
Well, I think right now it's our schedule. We are still not done with it. We have a program that is great in many ways, but also creates barriers for all of us to make sure the system sorts our students into the classes that they need. I think that's a barrier for all of us that we're experiencing right now. Some can do it very quick. I cannot. I'm new. I'm still learning. But when we think about our new schedules that we are implementing for next year, and every middle school is kind of having their own spin on it, depending on what we call advisory, for example. But we're all doing the new 6th grade initiative when it comes to the Reimagine, and we're very excited about it. I think the barrier for us is tricking the system to create these schedules for our students that fit their needs.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Patrick had asked the Greenwood team what would sort of put gasoline on the fire to accelerate it a little bit. And I think our friends at Riverwoods had also laid out in their handout some like tools that would help them to accelerate their success. So do you have anything specific to the success that you found at Brody that you think we would help you accelerate it and find even more? Like what are the resources or needs that you have to be even more successful?
I think just really lifting up our professional development time and making sure that we're prioritizing staff being there and making sure that we have time to teach all the things that we are being asked to teach that most recent research lifts up. I think that's a huge barrier. We have our high quality curriculum. I know that there's areas for growth depending on who you talk to, but our staff at Brody have really dug into understanding the big idea of how it all works together. If you go in and teach a curriculum without understanding all the different parts, it's not going to work. So we just need to continue our cadence and continue the work that we're doing. So I'd say time for professional development.
Can I ask a follow-up? Because that's also listed as Riverwoods Challenge is more time for, well, they said collaborative planning. Can you just add a little more context to what you're saying for those of us that don't work and live and breathe it every day? Is it like optional for PD and you're saying it's challenging to have people attend, or?
Well, I think subbing is a big barrier to probably most schools where you want to value that professional learning community where your team gets together. But if you have to sub someone else's classroom, that takes away from that time. So I think all of us, all principals and support staff are doing everything we can to get volunteers and subs to come into the building so we can prioritize that time. And I think we're still coming back from COVID, right? And every year gets a little better with substitutes. And I think I'm hopeful for next year that we will even have more than we did last year. Because I do think hearing teacher voice, specifically at Brody, about having 2 building subs this year, where in the past they had none, was significant to everyone in their work. And I heard about that all year. And not being there, I didn't know. But I do think it makes the teachers feel valued and that their time is valued and they're able to work with each other during their professional learning communities. And when you're subbing, you're in the whirlwind. You're just surviving. So if you don't have that time to work with your team so you can build that collective effort, it's really hard to do.
How can us as parents help your staff and your students successfully move on to the next step of this? I know a lot of parents want to help out and they don't know how to. How can we support?
Well, I think supporting our cell phone policy is number one, making sure that your students have those put away. Second thing is, looking and lifting up our volunteers is always really helpful. Having that extra person in the lunchroom talking to kids, playing games out at recess, that's super helpful. And we have a volunteer form in Des Moines Public Schools that's pretty easy to fill out. And if more parents did that, they could come in the schools quickly and get to know all the kids and their friends.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My question was also around volunteer utilization within the schools, but since Anna already has alluded to that, I'll just end my comments by saying thank you, and we're glad to have your leadership on the South Side.
Thank you. I love Des Moines.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that brings us to monitoring, and thanks to our leaders and their teams, Representative Tracy, certainly Jenny and Amy, and their associate principals. Now, Madam Chair, back to you for monitoring.
Great, thank you.
I have a question for Dr. Roberts, actually, if it's okay, kind of just to summarize.
Yes.
Well, it's not really about the reports necessarily. It's sort of more just about what we heard tonight and what we've been hearing before the reports. And I'm really interested because the last several reports have had the opportunity to hear from really high performing teams about what they're doing to move the needle in their individual schools. And so, I reflect on the comments tonight, which are exciting to hear about schools finding success with high quality materials or schools finding success with investments in professional development. And Dr. Roberts, my question for you and your team is really, how are you taking what we're hearing or working at individual schools and cascading it out across the district so that we can see more success at other buildings? Can you just maybe connect those dots for those of us at the table and the community watching as sort of what's happening behind the scenes to see greater success in our district?
Board Member Knox, thank you for the question.
Dr. Roberts, I'm just going to remind you on it too. We are going to be reviewing the FY26 budget request specifically for Goal 1 and 2 tonight, just so people remember that. So
maybe we'll see something.
No, I think it's fine to answer that, but I just wanted to remind everybody that that is something we're going to do tonight. But Dr. Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board Member Knox, thank you for the question. It's important to note that our principal supervisors could have selected any number of schools to come up and present this evening. And so what you saw and heard tonight is not happening in isolation. There are a robust set of professional learning communities that are happening. Our principals from the schools who presented tonight and their teams have really strong partnerships with their peers. So this is not happening in isolation, and our data across the district speaks to that, right? Case in point, even our preliminary results around our state assessments really echoes the fact that we don't have just one and two schools that are doing really well. We are seeing increases across the board while acknowledging that there's still a lot of work for us to do. But you're right, some of what the principals highlighted this evening will certainly push us to take some additional actions and different in terms of seeking additional resources, but also continue to improve upon just those areas where we can still grow.
Let's actually use that as a jumping off point, if that's okay, maybe for Goal 1, monitoring. And so this is really just a facilitated session where we're able to ask questions. I think the good news is we had the opportunity to celebrate and show our appreciation and enthusiasm for the strides made with our literacy efforts. And so, I just want to say, this says this year-over-year growth that was made was the most made on since 2022 on the ELA ISASP assessment and exceeded the target goal. So it really is worth celebrating that. And I think, Dr. Roberts, consistent with something Jenna said, not to be a Debbie Downer, but we still know that we're in the 50%, aiming for 65%. So there's a lot of work to do. Can you give a little bit more insight into across the board, the schools, the elementary schools? So a little bit like they're showing progress, but if you were to put our schools in some type of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 in terms of how they're doing, can you help us understand the bigger picture of how schools are performing to goal?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate that question and push. And so, as I think about our 38 elementary schools, what comes to mind for me, based on the data that the team is now discussing, is the fact that we are not only implementing high quality curriculum, with a much improved level of consistency, but we are seeing where our focus is narrowed, and we're going deep instead of wide. So, for example, if I had to think about some of the practice that we are looking at, we are going to continue to implement Gleam, and Gleam is being implemented across the board. One sort of point of celebration as we look at the Gleam inventories and the result of those inventories across all of our elementary schools, more than 90% of our teachers are implementing grade level instruction, right? The GL of Gleam with fidelity. That is huge, because when you think about grade level instruction, you're talking about increased rigor, academic rigor, and it's a much more robust system. Additionally, this investment by our teachers in professional development, right? So again, we heard from one of our leaders early tonight that teachers understand that they are a lot of opportunities for them to grow, improve, and get better. Even the teachers who are seeing really strong results. And so the scope and sequence around professional development district-wide that our principal supervisors, instructional coaches, and curriculum coordinators are utilizing with our teachers and leaders is certainly anchored in this idea of continuous improvement and getting stronger. Additionally, the science of reading, you've heard that reference a few times. While we still have not attained 100% of sort of differentiated professional development for our teachers around the science of reading, and that transcends any content area. We are getting a lot of traction there. So, for example, the science of reading to strengthen like vocabulary and language comprehension to improve reading comprehension and fluency, especially in grades 3 through 5. Those are some of the things that we've started and will continue. We started so many of these actions in the last year, and we're just going to build on those. And then finally, some enrichment. Right, we recognize, to both board member Knox and your point, that while we are seeing significant growth that we can celebrate, we also recognize that, and I think Dr. Miriam has alluded to this question around summer slides. We have some enrichment this summer, and we'll continue to sort of find and create time to have some enrichment. The last point that I want to make and share is because 25% of our students are multi-language learners. As a district, across the board, we are making tremendous strides with regards to students who are exiting and who are also doing very well. Just in general on their ELPA, we are outperforming not only the state, but many of our surrounding districts. Is that an area where we can grow and get better? Yes. We're not going to stop tweaking, refining, and sort of moving the needle and around how we're looking at this work until we get to achieve 100%. It's ambitious, but that's our big goal.
Great. And I think my follow-up comment would be, it'd be great to see the underneath the hood, like of the 30 elementaries, how many schools are meeting target, just trying to understand the next level down. So that can be, sent in a Sunday update, but I just think it would be helpful to see the breakdown of the schools as it relates to where they are in hitting the targets. Other questions, comments people want to ask of Dr. Roberts for Goal 1?
I have one question, and I feel like my question's always similar around the summer slide, but at a district level, Dr. Roberts, I see on page 7 for Goal 1 that you do reference, I think you just referenced it also out loud, the summer enrichment program, and going to be expanding some of the summer school options this summer, which I'm really excited to see and hear about. One of the questions I have is around the equity and the access for all students. This is specifically calling out the MLL students, which I heard you say is 25% of DMPS students. Who else has access to this summer programming?
All of our students will have access, but I think during this initial year, certainly there is a very targeted number of students who will receive this support. But I think what I'm hearing from you, which really inspires the team and I to continue to think about just expanding this or making it much broader, right? And so it's going to require us to look at a sort of the cross-functional aspect of planning for summer school. So that will include looking at our transportation team, our food and nutrition team, and our curriculum and instruction team. So increasing access is certainly something that's on our radar. So I appreciate that ask. But as of right now, we're being thoughtful about the equity component, right? And around who we sort of ensuring have access to this.
If I'm just going to follow up, Dr. Roberts, because I know this is something Jen and I brought up a couple times even prior to you getting here, I think it would be helpful to understand the scope and scale of summer programming, because I think it's hard to understand what we're doing this summer. So can you give any context to whether it's an expenditure, it's the number of schools, it's the number of kids you're aiming to serve? I think more specificity would be helpful to understand what scope and scale actually looks like to be able to assess equity as well.
For this summer, I think
Correct.
Ali Davis is in the room, and I can have her come to the podium. She's
That would
leading,
be great, thank you.
yeah, our summer school initiative.
Hello. I just pulled up we have 7 schools right now that have summer school programming. And actually, most of them started June 9th, and it goes through the end of this month. And then I've also been working with Jason Allen. I think this is something I shared in the winter time or in March when I shared for board monitoring, like next steps. I've been planning with Metro Kids Care to use Amira at those sites. There are 6 Metro sites. I was planning on
this summer, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
right, yep. And then part of the snafu with that, I'm just going to be honest because it's new, is technology. Rostering students right now is taking a lot of time. Also syncing with one of our technology programs, Clever and Infinite Campus. So actually, I've just been in communication with Josie to try to get that going. But going to train the Metro caregivers next week and get started using Amira so that we're being intentional about going to where the kids are. So that those are some steps right now that are happening. I'm just going to be transparent with you, and Dr. Roberts shared it, to get a school, a district-wide summer school for elementary would take planning right now for next year. Yes. For me to have started it in March would have been a huge undertaking, just given even understanding funding sources. When he said all students, it is all students in those elementary schools that have access to it. In fact, we've had some parents from private schools reaching out, just maybe from watching board meetings, I don't know, asking questions about if they could also participate. So a lot of it is understanding funding sources. Title I would be all of our students, and then Title III would be our multilingual learners who could stay for an extended day. I know Studebaker is taking advantage of that opportunity. Studebaker happens to be one of our comprehensive schools, so it's a really good data source for me to be able to look at and analyze and say, was this helpful? My concern and wonder about most of these summer schools happening in June is we still have July and then the beginning of August. So I actually just texted Josie a minute ago and said we better get started planning our district-wide summer school now for next year, because it's enormous, just the funding. Also, having kids sign up and having transportation, I've been working with schools on that. But Studebaker, for example, they have an all-day program all month. 75 students are enrolled. Their school is much bigger than that. So,
and how do you pick the schools? Is there
really, at this point, it had been schools that were interested and started reaching out to families early spring. And Studebaker was the one that I've been partnering with because they will have the extension for our multilingual learners, and they're also comprehensive. I just felt like that would be a good data set because I know this has come up often and wanting to address it. So, and also working with food and nutrition, I actually have our one of our curriculum coordinators is our library coordinator, media specialist for the district, getting some books and resources out to the food sites, so our apartment complexes. So we're working to do that as well. It's just, it's great if people have ideas, and it's a big undertaking, which requires a lot of our different departments to work together and communicate. Yeah, so.
Are the 7 schools distributed among, distributed regionally very well, or are they all in one spot?
So this is actually something that I noticed early on, is that most of them are on the south side. Yeah, right. We don't have very many in other regions of our district, which was concerning for me. I did reach out to some principals, and we do have Cattell, which is more east side. We do have Brody and Harding as well that have summer programming that are middle schools. So that's just something of note. So while I was speaking about the elementary, there are some middle schools with
And
summer
it
school
requires,
programming.
sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
right over you.
No,
It
you're-
requires licensed teachers, right? Familiar with the science of reading, or what is
Correct.
the requirement
Well,
to stand up in addition to financial?
Yep, so it would be certified staff, teaching staff, and then when it comes to our extension, so our utilizing our Title III money, which would be our MLL students, we want our teachers that are certified and have licensure when it comes to teaching ELL, so as well.
I really appreciate your transparency.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Can you talk a little about the cost for students, or are there any populations of students where this is not an expense and it's waived or covered?
This is of no cost to our students. So it's funded through Title I and Title III. If it's funded through anything else, I may need Josie's support on that. But the schools that I'm speaking about would be funded through Title I and Title III and no cost to our families. And then we've been trying to just work through transportation issues and things too, to make sure if that's a barrier, what can we do to help? Communication, all of those pieces, so translation.
And then those title funds usually come from those schools that are hosting it, or is it? kinda
Yes,
like a-
and it could also be district funds as well.
Okay.
So I've been working alongside Josie and April Murray to try to make sure we're utilizing our resources in the best way. We have, especially Title III, we had plenty of money to do so, and that's why I was trying to encourage some of our schools to extend that day. It's a matter of, did they have enough students that were showing interest, and families, and then also staff. And so maybe trying to find ways to incentivize staff, because I get it, they've worked all year, and then to recruit would need to start, like I said, now. And we're not shying away from that, just it's a big undertaking, but we're excited about it.
I'm excited about it as a parent.
Yes, yeah, it's great. I would love to see it maybe later in the summer. This is pretty early because we still then have, like I said, the whole month of July and August. And it might be a matter of what staff were available in June to be able to teach.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you for sharing all that. I think when you look at a lot of the school districts around the nation that recovered and are coming back from COVID even stronger, like more fiercely than going in, a lot of it has to do with their like targeted tutoring opportunities. And I think a lot of summer school for us too, when we look at what our goals are 2 years from now, to have 65% proficiency, which is a huge lift. Like, I think things like summer school are going to be absolutely critical. So thank you for being a champion for not only this year, but already thinking about years down the line, because I think it's just going to help our district hit our numbers and exceed them.
and thanks for pushing for it and advocating for it. And we're going to keep looking, so, and keep working on it. It's a start, so.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Dr. Roberts, is there a comment you wanted to make on goal one?
No, Madam Chair, I think just it's important just to highlight again that while we are exceeding the target in terms of where we are right now in the overall goal and looking at the two interim goals, we're developing towards the target. I don't want us to stay in this place of celebration, but to acknowledge as the board, several of you highlighted early on tonight that we have a lot of work to do, but I am really confident about the plans that we're putting in place and the teams that are leading this work. So thank you.
Dr. Roberts, that was my question to you is, based off of what you've seen in progress, what we heard tonight about professional development and its impact on teachers, is there any indication through whatever it is, research, experience of other districts, your intuition that tells you that we might start to see a little bit more of a hockey stick on some of these reports where the numbers will go up faster. It feels as if there is some momentum year over year in the professional development making a difference in the classroom. And while we still need to add resources, I'm just interested in your perspective overall as to what your sense of the impact of some of the strategies that you've put in place now that it's had a year and a half, 2 years to work, when we might start to see an acceleration of this.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Dix. Well, we are already sort of seeing that we're getting some traction, but that acceleration that you're referencing, I want to anchor my response in sort of three different tenets, right? Particularly as I think about one, implementation science, which tells us that once you look at implementing a solid set of strategies and initiatives, it takes 3 to 5 years. Well, we are going into year 3 in school year 25-26, and so I believe that we'll start to get some traction. Secondly, is we want to be able to sort of stay away from just my or anyone else's expertise, but look at the predictive data. And the data tells us that we are likely going to see some of that acceleration that you're referencing. And then thirdly, and this is probably of utmost importance, just the investment of the adults in this district, particularly those who are focused on instruction and who are supporting instruction, our principals, associate principals, right? The layers around principal supervisors, curriculum coordinators, instructional coaches, teachers, their investment is beyond inspiring. They're willing to go above and beyond to ensure that they are embracing not only the high quality curriculum that we're offering, but also having their own mental models pushed, for example, to implement Glean, to look at how they're pivoting with the implementation of EL, right? And so I really appreciate that question because next year we're likely to see a case where we continue to build on momentum.
Dr. Roberts, what is I think it was either Jenny or that talked about retention. And I apologize if I don't remember who brought up the issue of retention and teachers wanting to stay because of the experience. I don't expect you to know this number, but I think about the turnover that DMPS historically has, and I'm wondering, that seems to be new teachers, while incredibly welcomed and we're excited to have you, seem to slow down forward movement because they might not have had the training, the letters training, or some of the other things that people have talked about. What is the district doing to accelerate their onboarding so they can not slow down progress?
So there are two things. One, I think that the work that is happening with the HR team or the talent and personnel department around not only onboarding, but mentoring. And so our new teachers have the benefit of a mentoring program. And then secondly, I want to reference the national research that from the new teacher project that is titled Irreplaceables. What the research tells us is that teachers tend to have that turnover and leave districts when they're not feeling as if they're having opportunities for professional development and getting their capacity built. And so we are certainly aligned with that because our team is committed to professional development, ongoing professional development.
Okay, thanks.
Let me also add, in addition to just the summer school that is being led by Ms. Davis, who just shared with you at our elementary schools, and we also have middle schools, programming at 3 of our middle schools this year, Brody, Hardin, and McCombs. For example, McCombs has partnered with the Science Center, so that also gets back to our priority number 5, right? Cultivating those strong community partnerships. And so not only at elementary, but at middle schools as well. And then eventually, I think we need to start to think about, is there an opportunity for us to have a really solid plan around extension of learning and not just credit recovery for summer school at the high school level? So stay tuned. We recognize and acknowledge, thanks, Board Member Knox. Yes, summer school can be, and that extension of learning can add so much value to the work we're doing. Yeah.
Ms. Knox? I meant Ms. Alonso.
Dr. Roberts, Maria, I have just one question about AmeriCorps members. Mm-hmm. And we know that they have a huge impact, right, on the growth of a student. I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit about the plan that you have moving forward for next year?
And do we still have them?
And do we still have them? Yes.
Yeah, I think I'll call Ms. Davis back up. I know that we've had some, I'm not sure where we are in terms of the amount of volunteers that they still have that they'll be able to bring into the buildings. But we want to be able to continue that because again, the initial partnership, we've seen some growth, we've seen some improvement, we've seen some impact.
So can you just give us the history too? So we've had them for one semester?
Yeah, so they would have been trained and we recruited them, interviewed them. They started the end of January. So that impact, the data that's represented here in this board monitoring report happened just in 3.5 short months, really.
Contribute part of it to their capacity, the capacity that they added?
I believe they played a big part, yes, especially because they were trained in how to progress monitor and fast, and they had been trained in 10 different interventions that they used, and just the model in which we really focused on first grade as a priority, and then anything else was kind of icing on the cake. It was just another layer of instruction and support for our kids. And I do have great news. Their federal funding did not get cut yet. And so I am meeting next week to plan. And if the funding is approved in the costing, I did cost for one to be at one at each elementary school. So 38 is what I costed. And actually I was quoted, it was free through the state this year, $20 per student. And they actually said it's going to be more likely between 12 and 15. Now, can we get 38? Can we recruit them? That'd be great. We do have some. My meeting next week is to determine how many existing members want to come back. And we did get feedback from the leaders of those schools too to say, do you want them back and how was the experience? Because a lot of it is, were they dependable, were they reliable? We started out with more and we ended up with 7. So I think we started out with 12 and we ended up with 7 reliable people. So they did make growth and they did impact a lot of students and put a lot of hours in. And so it's definitely worth it. It's a matter of, and if we're recruiting now, which we're starting next week, hopefully we can get one in every building is my goal. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Roberts, I have one additional question on Amira, if that's okay. I've been doing a lot of reading about AI, and I never want to say out loud that I think AI will replace a teacher, so nobody think that I'm saying that. But what the research shows is that some of this skill building that is scaffolded is really helpful to a teacher, and in much the same way, the community building and the SEL work is all about teacher and face-to-face and human contact. What is the district's philosophy? What is our emerging philosophy as it relates to using AI in our classrooms to help skill build?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. We certainly have a healthy appetite to embrace the sort of technological advancements that can support the work that is happening across the district in general, but more specifically, so like Amira and any other AI tool, we're going to take advantage of them as really strong resources that will not supplant, to your earlier point, but supplement, right, the pedagogical strategies that are happening in our classrooms from teachers. So yeah, we certainly have a healthy appetite with our curriculum and instruction team, our teaching and learning team, and our Chief of Technology. We are having ongoing conversations around this. As a matter of fact, I think as a part of his plan for the next school year, we are going to focus heavily on providing teachers and school staff with professional development opportunities around embracing and utilizing AI.
Great. All right, board members, that was goal 1. I will turn to goal 2 and see if there's any facilitation or any questions unique to goal 2 and specifically middle school. I had a question and it was on page bear with me. It was what's going well. So I think it was, thanks for your patience. Paraphrased while I'm looking for it. Here we go. On page 6, what's not going well, students on IEPs. And I'm actually asking for you to teach me, please. So our decreases for students, we are seeing small, very small decreases in gains, if I'm saying that right, with students. Is that right, Kelly? And so I'm just trying to understand what the expectations are and how we're supporting IEP students and why we might be going backwards rather than forwards. Sorry for
Yeah.
yeah. If that was
No, thank you,
clear.
Madam Chair. I thank you for that. I appreciate it. I would frame it differently. We are continuing to evaluate, right? So our special education student population, one of those marginalized groups that we intend to sort of invest heavily in terms of not only resources, but we're continuing to refine our service delivery model. I'll be the first to acknowledge that we have not done well by our students with special needs, particularly those who have IEPs, systemically. We're seeing a number of schools getting traction, but we want to make sure that we start to get that positive outcomes across the district as a whole. We've made some changes. I think one of the biggest changes we've had to think about is, in addition to the service delivery model, is in terms of leadership and personnel. So we've made some changes, and I expect that we're going to get some movement and some traction, right? It's one of those things that people think of as the elephant in the room, but we have to call it like it is. We have to make changes around the folks who are doing that work, who are leading that critical work.
Okay, thank you. Other questions on goal 2?
I do. Dr. Roberts, kind of alongside that, I know you've done the Gleam walks in the in the elementary schools, and that's been going real well. And then it shows that on what's not going well, still on page 6, the lack of consistency of the lesson unpacking protocols aligned with the Gleam emphasis. What have you heard, or what's your administration in the middle schools are saying? Is that something that is just knowledge-based, like more PD days for these teachers, or where's that coming from?
Yeah, thank you for that, Board Member Campos. So let me start first with the celebration, and then address, right, that observation you're making, and that is, when we've looked at the Gleam inventory data, and of course, Gleam inventory that has been conducted in all of our schools. When I think about instructional tasks that are standards aligned, what we've seen a 20.05% increase in teachers in our middle schools, teachers and classes in our middle schools. When we've looked at students that are actively engaged in standards aligned tasks, and that means that the teachers are incorporating grade level texts and all the tools and strategies or additional resources, we've seen about a 17% increase. But in terms of getting to the E, the A first of Gleam, and that is the affirming. Teachers are truly affirming students and learners, and we've seen a 17% increase there as well. But I also want to acknowledge that because we are and we're no longer in the infancy, right? I don't want to use infancy while it's still the first year, but because we're still rather in that very early stages of implementation of this really research-proven framework, we are going to see the changes that we need to see with more impact in the next school year. While at the elementary school, and you heard me reference this number earlier, we have a 90% sort of observation around how teachers are embracing this. At the middle school level, that number is just under 80%. It's at about 78%. So acknowledging that there's room for growth, but excited because the leaders and teachers are also acknowledging this, and they're planning to do something about it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, we are going to now move forward and decide whether we as a board accept the monitoring report. We'll do first goal 1. Goal 1 is exceeding target. May I have a motion and a second to approve this item?
I'll make a motion that we accept this monitoring report.
Second by Campos.
We have a motion by Mr. Dix and a second by Ms. Campos. Are there any discussion or questions?
I just do have a comment or discussion. I'm excited to see what the progress is going to be with the new cell phone implementation, especially for middle schools. Brody's principal did mention it, how it's working there, and I bet that's going to succeed more with the progress of goal 2.
Great, thank you. All right, with that, board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved. Did everybody say yes? 6-0. All right, board members, let's move to goal 2. So we will now move forward and decide whether the board will accept goal 2, monitoring report, the evaluation is exceeding target. May I have a motion and a second to approve this item? We have a motion by Ms. Knox and a second by Ms. Alonso. Any discussion or questions? Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 6-0. Next up is a presentation and update on Goal 3. Board members, I am going to make a suggestion that we take a 5-minute break. 5 minutes mean 5 minutes, means go to the bathroom, come back, don't talk, Skylar. With that, we will be right back. So 5-minute break, Dr. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm just gonna stay here, or it won't be 5. Oh, what do I look like? Dr. Roberts isn't gonna show me up.
Time's up. We're starting again. Dr. Mayberry Mays is not in his seat.
We were talking in the kitchen.
Yeah, no talking. Let's go.
That's what I was doing.
Let's see. We are now moving to a presentation on Goal 3. Is that correct, Ms. Rios? Dr. Roberts, are you here?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes,
Great.
and Josie's here.
Josie's at the table. Are we good to go? Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to frame what I think is supposed to happen tonight. We are receiving a brief presentation on Goal 3 interim recommendations.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm just a director here in front of you with some interim goal proposals.
Not just.
The first part of this presentation you all saw on May 6th. Based on feedback from the board at that meeting, my team went back and identified alternates for interim guardrail 3B and 3C. So that's where the majority of the presentation will be tonight. I'm going to run through the first few slides just to ground us back into what we're looking at. And then I'll present those new B and C proposed interims. All right. So what you'll see here, Diploma Plus, current state and trend goal line. So this is Goal 3. So the percentage of grade 12 students earning a Diploma Plus during 4 years of high school. With an interim goal, what we're looking for generally is 1 to 3 years. You'll notice that our A is set at a 5-year goal to mirror the Diploma Plus. B and C are set at that actually 2-year goal time frame. The other things with interims is that they need to be measurable multiple times throughout the year. We need to have evidence or belief that there will be evidence that there is a relationship to the goal between the interims and the goal. And that the purpose is to provide the board information on how the system is moving towards that goal state when we know that we can only measure graduation and achievement of a Diploma Plus 1 time a year. So with Goal 3, you'll see the language there and then the associated targets that you have adopted going out into 2030. 3A has stayed the same. So this is the percent of 9th grade students meeting the 9th grade on-track metric, which is defined as earning 5 credits and failing no more than 1 core class by the end of their freshman year. That number increasing from 48.3% in the spring of 2024, looking at last year's numbers as our baseline, to 60% in the spring of 2030. And you can see then the kind of trend line that you'll see with that mirrored 5-year length. Interim Goal 3B, then, what we have identified is the percent of 10th grade students in geometry meeting benchmark on MAP geometry will increase from 36.5 in the winter of 2025 to 41% in the winter of 2027. A little bit of prefacing here, unlike FastBridge, which we take 3 times a year at K-8, MAP for our high school students, we only take twice a year. We take once in early September, and then we take once in kind of a late January, early February timeframe. So that's why these are, instead of being spring targets, they'll be winter targets to reflect that second measurement of the year. With that, then, the interim Goal 3C, I apologize. There is the targets for winter of 2026, so this would be winter of next year, and then winter of 2027. So that's reflecting that 2-year time frame. There are a few reasons for MAP using just that 2-year time frame. The first part of it is that we actually haven't yet been able to do a correlational study between MAP outcomes and our Diploma Plus work. Because we have only taken MAP for the last 2 years, we don't have any students who have graduated that we have this data for yet. So we'll be able to do that correlational study over the next 2 years and then come back to the board at that point with either whether or not to continue with these as our academic models under Goal 3, or if we need to identify something different for the interim at that point. So there is our 2 for 3B. And then moving on to interim goal 3C is our percentage of 11th grade students meeting benchmark on MAP ELA, increasing from 43.3% in the winter of 2025 to 47.8% in the winter of 2027. And then the next slide, you will see a similar marker to that there. So those are the 3 interims proposed for goal 3. Do you have any questions?
I do. There was a lot made about the idea of intentional planning around this goal succeeding. And so I wonder why there wouldn't be, and somebody educate me, why there wouldn't be an interim that shows an increase, because as I understand it, next year's freshman class will be the first that goes through this cycle with a plan in place. And part of Diploma Plus will be identifying and stating out loud an intention toward a Diploma Plus outcome. And so I wonder why we wouldn't measure the number of kids who have a plan in hand their freshman year and how that is going their sophomore year, why we wouldn't measure that progress. Because part of this, in my mind, is just saying out loud, you actually have a plan when you go through freshman year that you're going to get a diploma and it is going to have an additional certification or some other recognition to it.
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing is asking about looking at something like our ICAP data, where we're collecting data, or MyApp data, where we're collecting information about that. We don't currently have a system fully built out around that process. That's another reason that might be something that we come back to in a year or two to see if we've had enough data collected at this point. What I wouldn't want to do is kind of put a target on paper guessing right now where we are without having an intentional system in place around that.
What my concern is, though, is that we're going to get to a year from now and go, or 2 years from now and say, well, we just didn't have plans in place for it. The baseline of this is that every student has to have a plan going in.
So 2 things. I'm going to make a suggestion. Dr. Lumdine, would you mind coming up here too as well? So I think you can be part of the conversation with Josie. That would be great.
And let me also, thank you, Madam Chair. Let me also add, again, Board, may I just humbly remind us that this is a brand new undertaking.
Sure.
And so while I really appreciate Board Member Dix's push, I can say with the utmost confidence that because you all have given us a long enough runway in terms of a single year to build this plane, we're not going to come back at the end of the implementation of year 1 or 2, not having a plan in place. I think we'll be much further along, but I appreciate that push.
I want to make sure to say one thing. So, and whether I think this is the right tact or not, I do want to remind you that the direction that was given was about things that you tell me the right research were, but are connected to student outcomes.
Yep.
Students know and are able to do.
Correct.
Right?
I do want to say, though, I think, and this is something that I wanted to bring up for Dr. Roberts for you to consider, which is, I know you talk a lot about data step back meetings. I think about leading indicators. And I'm wondering, there's this interesting time where we're both trying to prove student outcomes, but there's a lot of inputs. And I think there's a desire to have more information on the inputs and that are going into this. So for instance, if Diploma Plus, if part of the goal is to add certain offerings that you can obtain as part of Diploma Plus, are we seeing that number increase? Like, I just want to make sure that two things, right? So one is, this is about student outcomes, and that was the board conversation.
Yes.
So just remember that. And if the board feels like we need more data, right, that are more, again, I need better words, I'm just using what I know, which is leading indicators or things like that, to show growth, we should ask for that.
Yeah.
That just aren't outcomes, but data that could help. Yeah.
To me, it's about driving behavior. and making sure that everybody is moving in the same direction. I believe that we have laid out a really, really good plan here. I don't mean, Dr. Roberts, that you would come back to us and say that the district hadn't planned enough. What I'm afraid of is that we're going to hear from parents who say, I had no idea my student was supposed to have a 4-year plan. And so what's the communication? Will every student go into the fall next year, freshman student, knowing that they are going to need a 4-year plan and that that's the way we need them to look at it? And that, to me, is something that students should be able to know and do, is make a plan and follow through with it. I think this is, for me, this is the start. You got to begin at the beginning.
So just a question and Tasha, you're welcome to come up as well. I think a question for you, Dr. Roberts, is all of these things, right? So to get to where you're trying to go, all of these things, do they have a plan? There's a list of things that have to happen to be able to accomplish these outcomes. And so where and how do you track those inputs?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So we actually, as a part of our strategic planning process with our technical cabinet, one of the things that we've invested in as a team is actually using a project planner, using actual a strategic planner model. And so next year, as we actually implement the strategic plan, which all of this is deeply embedded in, Diploma Plus is a huge initiative within that piece. The monitoring associated with Goal 3 will be directly related to the monitoring of the strategic plan. We have a process that we are building out with our new leader team consultants that we've been working with on the strategic plan to actually lay out how each of our board monitoring sessions will be preceded by a tactical cabinet meeting that will have a step back related directly to the goal that's being monitored, so that we have put together all of that information. I think that is what you're looking for, is so when we can say from a key results standpoint, have we hit how many students have gotten this? Have we hit how many hours of PD? Have we hit how many classes aligned to the NGOT framework, right? So once we have those things, that will become part of the board monitoring that you see in those reports. Does that help?
That's what I'm looking for.
Dr. Mabry, I'm going to just ask you if you have thoughts on this, because I know we've talked briefly about it.
I do. I had to brush up on some of my data analysis stuff actually myself. So I was looking at, and I know you had talked about it earlier, trying to better understand, or maybe help me understand again the reason for a 2-year data point.
Yeah, so twofold on that. So one of the underlying assumptions with an interim goal is that you have evidence of a relationship to the goal. Because of where we are in the Diploma Plus process and where we are with MAP implementation, we don't have enough years of cohort data of MAP, of students who have taken MAP, to know when they graduated, whether or not, where the relationship lies between them having met benchmark on that assessment and whether or not they receive that Diploma Plus. We do know that MAP benchmarks tell us a lot about whether or not a student will be successful in those classes as they get to the end of it. So we're using that as a proxy that says we believe that this will have strong relationship to one another, and it gets at the academic underpinnings, I think, as Kim said in the last meeting, of what it takes to graduate high school. And so with that, what we've said is that we want to set this 2-year target. We want to have a stability for a couple of years, but then we want to be able to revisit that once we have that information. So we started assessing using MAP for our, let me see if I can find, I want to make sure I'm quoting the right dates. So for 10th grade geometry, we started in the winter of 2024, or 2023. I think we only put through 2024 on here. With MAP ELA for 11th grade, we just started that in 2024. So when we were doing this analysis, none of the students who had taken ELA MAP and taken the MAP assessment had yet graduated. And so we are just now getting to the point where we can do that analysis. So that was part of the reason for recommending a 2-year target, so that we have the time to come back then and redo that analysis.
Okay, that's helpful. Is there a reason why like a winner of 28, 29, and 30 are not forecasted out?
Because it's only a 2-year target. Because we set that target at that 2 years to prompt us to come back. Again, we don't have a ton of background of historical data. We've only got a few data points. So that'll also give us, if we do decide to say with MAP at that time, which we absolutely may, that'll give us a stronger understanding of how we can set targets more effectively.
Okay, thank you.
Are we doing any, and again, I know that this is not student outcomes specifically, but when we talk about inputs that are helpful to understand if there's forward movement, do we do any surveying of students or families? Like, are there any plans to understand how implementation or communication is going as it relates to this goal that we can look back on, and it may just be on an annual basis, but how do we know that people are picking up what we're putting down?
Yeah, so
I
twofold.
can respond to that,
Yeah.
Josie, before you jump in. One, as we look at all of these inputs that are aligned to and strongly connected to our strategic plan, we plan to have quarterly updates for not only the board, but for the entire community around progress that we're making on our 18 strategic objectives and those 59 strategic actions. And so you're going to see and receive there's a lot of visibility that everyone will have into how we're doing around achieving these goals.
So Dr. Roberts, just to clarify, by June 30th, the board will see those OKRs?
That's still a work in progress. That's still a work in progress. The work we're doing right now with executive and tactical cabinet to make sure that we are aligning strategic plans with goals and guardrails and with board monitoring and OKRs.
Okay. Other?
I would say, just supplementary to that, we also have a plan in place to take the kind of step back, as Dr. Roberts referenced, to our SIAC, the School Improvement Advisory Committee, which is a team of community members, students, and parents, as well as staff, to do a review with them on that quarterly basis as well out of this. I will also say, in the strategic plan, there are, I think Bridget counted 12 surveys across the different strategic areas. So I just want to acknowledge that parent and family feedback is a major aspect of this. What we're working on is how do we align those pieces so that we're not sending out 12 surveys.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think we have not, the board is supposed to actually get the reports, the SIAC reports, and so we haven't seen one, I think, since I've been on the board. And I know that's a statutory requirement. So if you could just make sure that that's made available to us in whatever cadence, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the ones from earlier this year. I apologize. We didn't get those filed.
Thank you. Other questions? So at this point, Josie, what do you need from us? You need kind of a thumbs up, move forward.
Yeah.
Are we doing a formal?
It doesn't have to be voted
That's right.
on, as long as the board generally agrees that this meets the vision of Goal 3 and will provide the interim information that you need.
Yeah, I think that I'm just going to look around. I think there's consensus, yes, but again, I'll use the OKRs as what I thought. Somehow we need to see, whether it's leading indicators or whatever you want to call it, progress to goals. So if it's showing us the project management tool that shows us things that are moving forward, if it's showing us numbers, but that is, I think, a secondary expectation. So as well. So maybe the first time we monitor it, or with Dr. Roberts, you come up with a list of what the board can expect, just to show, do you feel like you're on track or not?
Yep, absolutely.
Part of that is you're working on this all the time, and I think we'd like to give you some credit for the work. And that happens away from this board table. And so I think I'd like to be able to celebrate the work that's happening behind the scenes to make sure that this is a reality in 4 and 8 years for our students.
Yep.
Yeah, Josie, I just want to thank you. I mean, this has been the long haul. We literally gave you nothing and said, here, do something. And I'm really happy about these interns. So thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody that helped you out.
Dr. Roberts, final comments on this?
Yeah, thank you. I think I just certainly want to build on Board Member Campos' sentiments. And yes, but in addition to the board just giving us sort of this charge, I really appreciate just how you've pushed our thinking throughout the process so that we could arrive, right, at what I believe are 3 really strong and research-based interim measures. And so looking forward to the monitoring during the next year and certainly keeping you all posted on the progress that we're making. So excited about it. Thanks to Josie, Rob, and the entire, what they've affectionately called the Goal 3, and Tasha and the Goal 3 team. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great, thank you so much. We are now going to move to consent agenda. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with a speaker regarding comments made to agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table with speakers' comments, informing the board's discussion, deliberation, and determinations as deemed necessary. Ms. Rios, do we have any speakers?
No speakers for consent.
Dr. Mayberry-Mays, I believe you have the consent motion.
Yes. I move that the board approve the consent items in accordance with the recommended action for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized, certified, and approved for payment by the board secretary in the amount of $300,496.33.
Is there a second? We have a motion by Dr. Mayberry-Mays and a second by Ms. Campos. Is there discussion or questions? So board colleagues, I have to make a suggestion, and that is
Point of order.
Yes.
Sorry, I forgot to add more. And procurement card transactions.
Hold on a second. Okay. We haven't approved it yet. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. And procurement and cart transactions in the amount of $931,417.14. That's it.
Okay, any discussion or questions? So, board members, I need to make a recommendation, a friendly amendment, that we support the consent agenda, which is E15, on the consent agenda, item E15 is a list of FY25-26 contract renewals and cooperative procurements. And I apologize because I was late in noticing this, but one of the things that the board and superintendent had discussed was regular going out to market for some of our large vendors. And Shashank, remind me if I got this wrong, but we have recently gone out for our accounting, and that was how many years ago? 2 or 3 years ago. And then we just went out for our insurance, and that was this year? Yep. And so best practice is 3 to 5 years. I think we defer to Dr. Roberts and Shashank to tell us what the right cadence is. But as a result, the legal services contract needs to be RFP'd. And so I think the board is very committed to doing that in a very quick process, but is an important process that we go out to market. So if it's okay with everybody, I'm asking you to vote on the consent agenda and vote on E15, but we will table Allers for the near future discussion. And it's going back on the plate of Dr. Roberts and Shashank. Dr. Roberts, anything else you want to add to that?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. I just, again, this is the right time. So 2 thoughts. One is, we want to, and Shashank and I are going to work on ensuring that there's some consistency around the timeline. That is number of years within which we're going to come back with an RFP process to make sure that we have a really strong practice in place. And then secondly, as I think about our legal services, of course, we're going to have some really significant changes around, for example, our chief of HR and some other practice, some other sort of departments that work closely with our legal team. So I think it's the right time for us to do this.
Great, thank you. And just one moment, we have a slight admin issue. Shashank, come up here for a second. We're just going to pause for 1 second. I just noticed something.
Time out.
No, it's just that one.
We are going to pull one other item, and that is on page 2 out of 4, underneath communications, the line that does not have a vendor name, and its purpose is RFP 9222, Reimagine Learning and Strategic Communication. So I think we need more information on that as well. And we'll move with all due haste if there is a contract deadline. So with those two things that we've pulled off, we are going to move forward. Dr. Mayberry-Mays, will you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, please cast your votes.
I'm going to abstain due to a conflict.
The vote is approved 4-0 with 1 abstention. Next are a series of public hearings. First item is F1, public hearing for outdoor warning siren easement agreement at Merrill Middle School. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this item? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Dr. Roberts, would you please introduce the matter?
Certainly, Madam Chair. I recommend that the board approve granting a permanent easement to the city of Des Moines at Merrill Middle School following a public hearing.
May I have a motion and a second to approve this item?
Dix, so moved.
Campbell, second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dix and a second by Ms. Campos. Any discussion or questions?
Just a clarification, we're moving it or we're,
May I have a motion and a second? We have a motion.
no, I'm asking Dr. Roberts, are we moving the siren or are we?
Can we get to discussion?
Yeah,
So hold
sure,
on a second.
sorry.
We have a motion by Mr. Dix and a second by Ms. Campos. Are there any discussion or questions?
That's where I thought you were.
Oh, was I there?
That's where I thought you
Okay,
were.
sorry. I'm just trying to keep this one moving. Let's go.
I'm just asking, are we moving this or are we, is it relocation or is it stay in the same place?
I do not. I have a member of the operations team to weigh.
That's fine, we can talk offline.
Yes, we'll get back to you. Okay, board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved 5-0. Next item is F2, public hearing for electrical easement agreement at Hoover High School. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this item? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Dr. Roberts, would you please introduce the matter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recommend the board approve granting a permanent easement to Mid-American Energy Company at Hoover High School following a public hearing.
May I have a motion and a second to approve this item?
Dix, second.
We have a motion by Ms. Knox and a second by Mr. Dix. Is there any discussion or questions? Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 5-0. Next item is F3, public hearing for C1P 3512 Hoover High School secure entry. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this item? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Dr. Roberts, please introduce the matter.
I recommend the board review the proposed plans and specifications prepared by RMH Architects for secure entry at Hoover High School, hold a public hearing, and approve the plans.
May I have a motion and a second to approve this item?
Dix, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dix and a second by Ms. Knox. Is there any discussion or questions? Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 5-0. Next item is F4, public hearing for C1P 3513 Mitchell Early Learning Center parking lot upgrade. Is there anyone, the public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this item? Hearing no one, I'll close the hearing and turn it over to Dr. Roberts. Please introduce the matter.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. I recommend the board review the proposed plans and specifications prepared by Bishop Engineering for parking lot upgrades at Mitchell Early Childhood Center, hold a public hearing, and approve the plans.
May I have a motion and a second to approve this item?
Dix, so moved.
Mayberry May second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dix and a second by Dr. Mayberry Mays. Is there any discussion or questions? Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 5-0, and we move on now to discussion. So we are going to talk about the budget first, then we will move to reimagining education. As a reminder to board colleagues, we had a healthy discussion about the FY26 budget. I think there was some desire to want to review the sums of money that were being allocated to goals, specifically literacy, but all of the goals more broadly. And so we are going to have that conversation. And with that, I'll turn it over. So Dr. Roberts, you've got Dr. Lundeen and Shashank are at the dais. And so I'll turn it over to the three of you for a call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking forward to presenting some sort of costing, knowing that we want to certainly maintain sort of some flexibility as well to come back during the school year as needed to reallocate resources to ensure that we are truly moving the needle around getting the right outcomes for our literacy support. So turn it over to Shashank and Rob.
And actually, thank you for actually just starting it that way, because I have a question for you, Shashank, about the budget process and with some uncertainties. I think we have a lot of uncertainties around our budget. Can you remind the board what the current process is that you have with the board or with the superintendent of kind of reviewing on a quarterly basis, you know, expense to revenue? Like we don't have, the board doesn't do that anymore, that visibility. And so I'm wondering, given some of the volatility of the budget and the funding streams, how you're thinking about approaching this year from a budget standpoint, if any differently at this point.
So the report, which was a similar report that we used to give to the board prior to the change, is a report that I'll be sharing with him on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
So it'll be the same report. And if we need to get into more discussion, if Dr. Robert wants more details, we'll obviously give him more details.
Okay, so if, as the year progresses with the budget, and maybe this is something we just need to talk to Dr. Roberts about, if we wanted to get further engaged in the understanding of the budget on a quarterly basis, meaning really budget, any changes to expense or revenue and any shifts that need to be made, that would be going back to some type of guardrail like the one that we had in place to be able to have visibility into those quarterly budget assessments or our budget assessment, right?
Yes, we can always do that.
I just think it's worth understanding how, with the volatility of revenue, how expense and revenue decisions are going to be made throughout the year.
And that's a fair statement, Jackie. So the plan today is basically what has been the methodology for this costing. And the costing has been done in 3 large categories: investment in literacy instruction, investment in literacy support, and investment in other literacy costs. And all of them are laid down below that, whether it's a general ed or curriculum materials or whatever it is. What is the prioritization for literacy and the next steps? So the methodology has been basically the time which is spent by the teachers at various grade levels. We have, Dr. Lundin and his team sat down and came up with what percentage of time is being spent. My team went through those time spent and allocated, and picking up the actual costs from the systems, have allocated what is the actual cost that would be spent working on literacy goals. Something that I wanted to highlight, that this is not additional cash that will be expended. This cost is already embedded in the budget. So if you go to the next slide, investment in early literacy, and Dr. Lundin, please jump in.
Be glad.
Is if you have seen, we have tried to divide literacy instruction into general ed, ELL, and special education. And we have seen what is the percentage of time spent by the staff in each of these different roles, what is the cost, and what is the funding source. So that has been the general methodology. And what we are trying to highlight is that investment in early literacy is close to around $82 million. The same thing we have done. So what you had seen in the earlier slides was a cost which was around $4.5 million, which included some cost of staff, the curriculum materials, extended learning, and professional learning costs over there. And Dr. Lundin, anything that you would want to highlight over here?
And I think it's important to note across the various staff groups how heavy a proportion what they do is focused on literacy instruction. And so we wanted to make sure that that was reflected in the budget projections, in the budget costings. So you'll see there the percentage of time spent on literacy instruction in the course of an instructional week, and then in turn, how that's translating into the specific spending that is going on within the district to make that a priority.
So you're saying 75% a general education teacher spends their time on literacy instruction?
75% of a general ed teacher's time is devoted to literacy.
Is that what I said? Okay.
Yeah.
So 25% is everything else?
Other content, yeah, but that's where we're interweaving what's going on with literacy content into other subject areas as well.
Okay.
Using the same methodology for middle level literacy goals, our total cost was approximately $21 million. And what we had shared last time was approximately $3.6 million. The methodology is the same.
And Shashank, I'm sorry, help me understand. You're saying that's the increase? 3 million to, you're not saying that's the increase?
No, it's not the increase.
What's
What
the
we
3
had
versus
not-
the 21?
So what we had not captured in the previous presentation was the cost of the teacher time, which is
Okay.
being spent on this particular goal.
Okay. I got you now.
I think I'm just a little puzzled because I think the question is, what's the staffing we need to accomplish the goals? And this is just, this is helpful and important, I guess, but it's not actually answering the question because this staffing structure isn't hitting our goals. So maybe just frame is this just taking us through the same presentation but helping us look at it a different way?
Before the team responds, Madam Chair, a point of clarification. What do you mean by the staffing structures not hitting our goals?
I don't want to speak for you, but the sentiment I would say is, I guess what I was looking for, this tells us what we have. And maybe we didn't ask the question right. I think the question was, how are we refocusing our resources to hit our goals? And so the answer came back, and again, if I'm misrepresenting anything, please educate me, but it was about $3 million new spending toward the goal. And I think the board's response was, is that enough? And so we were looking for some context of what was it, what is it? And this tells us what we are doing, and I think it is helpful. I think this is very helpful. I guess what I'm looking at this and thinking is what I'm looking at more than last year? Is it less than last year? Is it
Going to help us hit our goals.
and what was the thinking that went behind it to say we put X amount of money? We got new money this year. We got more money this year than we had last year. It's not enough, but we got some. And so what are we doing with that to help us hit our goals? How are we shifting money around to make sure that it is targeted on this? That was my thought looking at it. And I don't know if that was similar to what you were saying.
I do just want to remind our colleagues, because I feel like Dr. Roberts' question is leading to the fact that they did just meet at least where they're supposed to be at the end of the year. So some kudos there. I think, when we were asking a lot of these questions, the leading data maybe didn't indicate that there was going to be that mark hit, and it was. So I think also remembering that we should celebrate that. And
Every fire
That's
needs
changed a little bit from
needs
last
more
meeting.
fuel to keep going.
I agree,
and that's all I'm asking is like we lit the fire, we got to keep it going now and get it going more. And so how do we do that? How do we focus? That's our job, is to help focus on the resources.
And I thought, just to be clear, Jenna, you're absolutely right. And yet what I thought we heard was the inconsistency by building of what resources they have available to them. Like a building that was able to get 2 permanent subs, that was great. How did they do that? Or a building that wanted a literacy specialist and didn't have one. And so it was really around the fine tuning of each of the building's needs to help accelerate their growth based on what they felt they needed. So, Dr. Roberts, I don't know if you want to respond. All of us just had a chance to speak, so.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Board. Yeah, this is really a good discussion. But what it also signals to me is that this is an opportunity for the team and I to offer you some more sort of visibility into just the dynamic nature, right, of how we're supporting schools. And so to Jackie's last point, we have to, you're not going to see consistency with staffing in schools, in 64 schools. What you're going to see is a targeted and differentiated approach to the staffing and support. So, for example, we staff schools based on need, based on enrollment, amongst 2 of the sort of critical areas. And so, with more specificity around achieving our literacy goals and achieving our MAD goals, in this case it's literacy, we want to make sure that we are creating a staffing model and a resource allocation and reallocation model that truly gets the desired outcomes. Let me use one example from tonight sort of to bring this point home. Like Jenny Inman, for example, shared that she does not have access to enough high quality curriculum, right, because of the nature of her school. So what has to happen now is we need to think about how do we support her in a differentiated manner. My impression of what you ask of us to bring to you tonight with this budget presentation around literacy costing is to provide you with a clear picture around where we are allocating our finances around things like our curriculum resources, for example.
I mean, I think the question is, to Jenna's point, I don't think anybody wants to hear that there aren't enough resources being allocated to literacy. And that is what we hear often. And so if this is the budget that's going to enable you, Dr. Roberts, and the team
Yes.
to accomplish and hit the goal and exceed the target, then I think that's what you should say. It feels like often we don't hear that when we're getting presentations, because there's things that buildings seem to be seeking that they don't have. So I think that's where the healthy tension is.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, I think it's important to note that in the last 2 years, we have been responsive and will continue to be responsive to buildings when they're seeking resources. If that is not happening, I need to know and hear that. Our principals, again, while we have layers of supervision and support, once it gets to the desk of anyone in the executive cabinet, they know that it is my expectation that they never start a response to an ask from a building leader with no. And so when that is not happening, we'll make those adjustments. This is a dynamic process. We're likely going to come back in the middle of the year or at quarterly points and say, we're making adjustments to reallocate resources. So yeah, I think that's where we're sitting.
Dr. Roberts, just out of curiosity, do you think that if we asked a general education teacher, they would believe 75% of their time is on literacy? Is that reflective of our culture in our buildings? Just curious.
I think you'll get probably different responses from, different individuals when you have 5,000 adults that you in the buildings and almost 3,000 teachers, because their experiences are going to be very, very different. But the culture that we're intending to create is, yes, literacy is everybody's business. One of the things that we were not able to share tonight, but it's built into the PowerPoint, for board goals 1 and 2, is the fact that literacy is going to be dealt with in a cross-discipline manner, and that is every single discipline that includes math, science, and social studies. You are going to see literacy skills and strategies being taught.
I guess I would like to ask specifically in the budget for elementary and middle school, where summer school and support for summer school planning is called out in each of these slides.
So summer school and middle, say that once more, I'm sorry.
Summer school, we've talked about summer slide a lot and how important it is to be planful for that and put money towards it, since it's an effective strategy. So where is that called out specifically in each of these budgets?
I don't see it noted on here.
It's summer learning is listed under
Where?
extended learning on with AmeriCorps
Yeah. Yep.
for elementary.
Can you go back to that slide? Whoever has control, thanks.
Yeah.
And then do we have it for middle school too? Extended learning?
Middle school, it's not noted on there, but
It's happening.
Well, if it's not in the budget, how would we, we hear about capacity and resources a lot, and Jenna and I have been fighting this fight for like 3 years. And so I feel like it's really important and we need to plan for it. And so if it's something, Dr. Roberts, you believe is an effective strategy, it would be great to see it called out in middle literacy as well.
Or perhaps, I don't know, said another way, maybe this is like the opportunity. And so if we don't have it planned for in the budget, then let's not talk about it as a potential thing we don't have as why we can't meet our goals throughout the year, right?
Okay, Shashank, where do you want to take us next?
so it's the timing of tonight's review is very timely, given the conversation that we had with the schools earlier this evening about literacy achievement and what the levers have been within the elementary and middle schools that were featured here tonight in terms of professional development, in terms of high-quality materials, in terms of prioritization of getting literacy support into schools. A couple of examples of small to medium-sized steps that we're taking in order to ensure that every dollar that can be expended towards K through 8 literacy is being done so. One is we took about redirecting some of the AEA funds that would have been otherwise used for central office positions, and instead allocated those funds towards the purchase of K through 8 EL curriculum materials. That was an important investment for us, and we wanted to make sure that those resources were getting into the hands of our schools.
Just a question on that, because I feel like we've spent a lot of money on EL curriculum materials over the past couple of years. Are these more, different, new? 'Cause I mean, we've invested year over year on EL, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to ask actually Ms. Davis and Ms. Schofield if they can.
They're replacement texts for some of our anchor texts that get used and loved in our classrooms. And we're replacing them now with library bound, so upgrading those a little bit, and then also increased needs. So we have a schedule of replacement text over the next 5 years.
But it's all part of the same EL curriculum.
It's the same
not
EL
new.
curriculum. They're just books that we've taped together, and they need to be replaced.
Secondly, we've noticed here the prioritization of replacing EL curriculum materials over new adoptions and other needed subject areas. In the last conversation we had together about the costing, Mr. Dix, you asked the question of what it was that we weren't prioritizing at the expense of that. And one of the things that we are undertaking as a teaching and learning division is looking very carefully at knowing that the literacy focus has to be our number one, where we can forestall investments in other areas to make sure that the literacy materials are getting into the hands of teachers. And so that's a consistent process that's going on, actually, we'll talk in a bit about the 5-year analysis of what's going to be needed from a curricular perspective, but we have purposefully gone about prioritizing those EL curriculum materials because the literacy goal is prerogative. Third, you can see that the commitment to replacing materials with vendor-bound text, which may be a little more expensive on the front end, but which will allow for free replacement of text as wear and tear occurs. We know that having books in hands of students makes a difference in terms of advancing literacy performance. And frankly, one of the things that we know happens across campuses is that there are disparate levels of access to books in campuses. So we want to make sure that we're getting those materials out into schools and that those materials are lasting. And so that's been a big push on the part of the Teaching and Learning Division. And finally, in conjunction with Neil Schroeder, our Chief Information Officer, we're looking at the reduction of print materials across content areas in favor of digital and Canvas materials so that we can have a more sustainable strategy with ready access to literacy resources that allows us to get more bang for our buck. Neil has been fantastic at working with us to ensure that one-to-one technology challenges don't get in the way of us being able to hook students up directly with the literacy resources they need and deserve. And so we want to increasingly migrate our dependence on print materials towards those that can be digital and that don't require consistent replacement.
Are those items that you're talking about, are those teacher-based items, or is it going out to the families?
Teachers and students. And that takes us to one of our upcoming projects within the Teaching and Learning Division, which is a projection of curricular needs for the next 5 years. We are right now mapping out across all content areas in elementary, middle, and high school what the projected adoptions would look like from a curriculum perspective and what those costs would be, not only so that we can be working together with the Business and Finance Division to be able to map out how we're allocating the appropriate resources, but also so that we can maintain our steady focus on the allocation of resources towards literacy on a consistent basis. This process just started. We literally were reviewing the first draft of the documentation this last week, and I'll be bringing our findings to Shashank and Dr. Roberts in the coming weeks so that we can start a larger conversation about how our budgeting process allows for anticipation of curricular needs, and in particular of highlighting the needs in the areas of literacy.
That's exciting. Towards that end, 2 questions. One, will Neil and the kind of the CIO, how is technology, AI, how are those research-based kind of next 5-year thinking being infused in this planning process?
That's great.
Or can it be? I mean, I guess that's just, that's all I'm asking. So because they're potentially cheaper strategies.
I won't go into too much detail. I've asked, excuse me, sorry, Dr. Roberts to bring a presentation to the board actually in July to kind of look back, kind of where we're at and where we're going. It will be a team effort. We've built an instructional technology, digital literacy team. Our new director just started Monday, and we are housing them in and amongst the teaching and learning group. So there's going to be a lot of partnership going forward.
Along those lines, my question would be is when we talk about curriculum changing, that has been a common theme of complaint for some of our staff, for some of our teaching staff, is that it's just the next new idea. Can you, Dr. Roberts, maybe you can, Dr. Lundeen, I don't know if you want to provide some thoughts as to when you talk about a 5-year plan, are we talking about changing curriculum because we believe the curriculum we have right now can be improved, or are we anticipating that about every 3 to 5 years, a new idea comes out, AI might impact how we teach and learn in the next 5 years? Can you give me some thinking, just sort of high level as to how you're going about that? What is it for?
It's a great question. And there's some of these curricular materials that are built to be lasting long-term investments, EL, IM, ODEL. The intent behind that investment is that those are not 3 to 5 year investments, but those go in a decade and beyond, and that any replacement of materials for that is designed to replenish what resources are needed there. There's other courses where, for example, it's been 10 years or so since we've updated the curriculum content, and we know we need items that are more current. Some of our more specialized AP courses, for example, where we want to spread those out more in our traditional high schools, we know we need to have the curricular content that's current for that as standards have changed. And so those are the ones where we have to balance the prioritization between maintaining the resources that are needed for literacy that will remain constant for hopefully as long as I'm here and beyond, with some of those other courses where we've been needing an update for a while, and it's just been a question of finding the right time and then the right opportunity to introduce those materials to teachers.
Okay, thank you.
And will that also include any signature school planning as well? So as you think about bringing those online, whatever curricular needs they may be?
It will. The signature school planning process is going to be one that is going to require us to think from the ground up around things like what course and graduation plans are required, what curriculum materials are going to be needed, what teacher training is going to be required there. And so that will play a critical role in the projection process that we've got here as we develop out those signature school models.
Great. Dr. Roberts, well, let me turn to my board colleagues. Any comments, questions? Dr. Roberts, any closing comments, or Shashank?
No, thank you, Ray.
I think for me, thank you. Thank you, the board, Rob and Shashank, and board, thank you for just really providing even more clarity to us, to the team and I, around what it is you're looking for. And I would certainly respectfully ask that we just continue to have this conversation.
I forgot one question, sorry. Has there been any conversation around the role philanthropy can play in these goals? And I bring that up because the Greenwood team specifically referenced having a private donor who was able to purchase those high quality materials for them, which is what they attribute a significant amount of their success to. So has there been any cross conversation or consideration on what
It's
some of
definitely
those
a
look like?
consideration on our part, and it's a question often of finding the right philanthropic match with the specific ask. So for example, when you look at the Montessori school that we'll be launching at Jackson Elementary in the coming years, we happen to have a donor who is passionate about Montessori on the south side, and they will be donating curricular materials for the launch of that school. I know that as we launch signature schools, as well as look at curricular needs across our campuses, we are going to be eager to work with the board, with the foundation, with Kaylee, to identify who those prospective matches might be, because we know that donors are eager to see something tangible in the hands of students when they're making those contributions.
Great. With that, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time tonight. And we are going to turn to the next part of our discussion, which is an update on reimagining education. Dr. Roberts, I believe you are going to present in partnership with Amanda Miller.
That is correct. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And
if
Amanda is
I
at the
can-
dais.
Yes, I can have Kyle just project for us as well. Thank you. So, board and community, at the meeting on June 3rd, Matt Smith presented an update around reimagining education, and certainly we committed to coming back to you all because time is of the essence to provide a deeper dive into where we are and progress we've made thus far. And so in the next slide, I just want to remind us that, see if Kyle is projecting. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. That when we sort of had the sort of challenge and the charge from the board, if you may, around reimagining education, we took it and just ran with it. And we are reminding our community and partners that our commitment is from preschool through graduation. We want to ensure that there's excellence in education experiences for every single student who knocks on Des Moines Public Schools doors, not only for now, but for the next 10 years, but for an entire generation. And so on the next slide, what we are highlighting is the fact that oftentimes when people hear about Des Moines Public Schools reimagining education work, I'm here in DC, for example, on today, and there are lots of questions from leaders across the country about it. And many folks are also thinking about what are we doing in terms of our capital projects? What are the building changes we're making to our buildings? And while we are committed to ensuring that our buildings, 72 buildings, 64 of them instructional buildings, are averaging between 72 and 80 years old. What is of utmost importance to us is the fact that our programmatic changes or reimagining our instructional programs will continue to be a priority. And so we've started some of this work already, right? And some of the work that's already on the way is our commitment to increasing access to preschool. We've continued to champion this with legislators and in communities. That includes our philanthropic community, because we realize that given the data we've looked at that highlights the difference between students who were able to actually have access to preschool and how their academic and social emotional learning performance far exceeds those students who were not able to attend preschool between grades 1 through 6. And so we want to make sure that we are expanding and increasing access to preschool in every geographic region in Des Moines. Additionally, we've invested in terms of transportation to ensure that we are improving access by removing that barrier for some of our preschool students and parents. We are going to go into the second year of that pilot because we've seen the return on that investment. Secondly, piloting a K-6 elementary schools. So we piloted with Finley Elementary, and we heard from many of our principals earlier tonight, who talked about the fact that they have a lot of positive outcomes thus far with their instructional programs. And what we've noticed is that because of the movement that happens between grades 5 and 6, elementary to middle schools, we tend to have students either losing some traction academically, or we've seen over the last several years a sort of erosion of confidence in some of our middle school programs by parents. And so we've seen some exit, right, from the Des Moines Public Schools to other neighboring districts for 6th grade. The pilot at Finley Elementary, the evaluation that was done by our data assessment and evaluation team bodes well for what is to come. Additionally, we know that our elementary schools in many instances are knocking it out of the park, and so parents are invested in wanting to make sure that they're supporting this model. So in addition to Finley Elementary, next year we are piloting again, second year of a pilot, extending our grade 6 in 4 additional elementary schools. And I have to tell you, almost 100% of our students and their parents have opted to keep their students in the elementary school in grade 6, except for one single student out of 4 schools. And so out of 5 now, Finley plus 4. So that's exciting. This work is already underway and we're getting some positive outcomes. Changing our middle school configuration is closely aligned to the K6 model, because we're looking at what will it mean for us to have our middle schools configured as a grade 7 and 8. What will it mean for us to look at sort of instructional program changes that includes how we're looking at schedules? You've heard some of that tonight as well as a barrier. So some of that work is underway. Expanding access to Montessori. Again, you've heard me and other members of the team continue to highlight the fact that, one, we have the highest performing middle school in the state of Iowa, and that's our Coles Montessori School. It's clearly a model that is having a tremendous impact on student outcomes, but also on families' confidence in the Des Moines Public Schools. And so this is an instance where, and please indulge my oversimplification, if it's not broken, why try to fix it? Or if it's doing well, why not replicate it? And so we have started this replication to ensure that we're improving access to Montessori education in every geographic region in Des Moines. And some of the work that's underway is we've piloted an elementary at Finley. We've also piloted elementary at Pleasant Hill in a pre-K format, and beginning the school year 26-27, we will have an additional Montessori pilot at Jackson, again, increasing access. Finally, in terms of work that is already underway, is our developing our Diploma Plus program. This is tightly aligned to Goal 3, and where we have this desire and an ambitious goal of ensuring that by 2030, 100% of the students who graduate from the Des Moines Public Schools High School will not only have a diploma, but on their diploma, they'll have a Diploma Plus an industry recognized certification. They'll also have possibly a Diploma Plus a seal of biliteracy, to make sure that we are truly preparing our students for success under the auspices of what we're calling our 3 E's, ensuring that students are prepared to be enrolled in a college or university of their choice, to enlist in a branch of the military if they so choose, or to be gainfully employed, not in a job, but in a career. So this is work on the way. In the next slide, you're going to hear from Amanda Miller about some of the review around our estimated project costs for this 10-year bold plan that we came up with.
All right, Dr. Roberts, thank you for kicking us off. So the slide you see in front of you is the district cost summary. You've seen this before. There is a key difference in the 2 columns. The column on your left side is estimated construction costs, which include additions, renovations, and new buildings. The slide on the right side shows estimated construction costs, which are just additions and new buildings. So an addition would be an upgrade to the current existing structure. So it was previously misstated, not all buildings are going to receive something. Like a Jesse Franklin Taylor is a brand new school, they're set where they are, but so they would not need a renovation per se, but we would be looking at adding a 12 classroom addition to a Lincoln High School, which would be the addition. There are some schools that would just receive renovations, which would be doorknobs, paint, all of those carpentry items. I think so that is always a key distinction. It's split up between the Northeast, the Northwest, and the South Side region, so you can see where the budgeted dollars lie within those three different regions. And there is a distinction between the costs, whether it be the additions of renovations or not. We also know that there is also facility work happening in regards to Save and Pebble, which will continue to happen with the dollars that come in as part of the facility condition assessment and the Superintendent's Advisory Council for Facilities, so they meet and construct different plans. So the costs are escalated. This is as close as a cost structure that we could get right now, knowing that it's a bold plan, 10 years, estimated construction costs with a 5% escalated cost over year. So to bring it on home, why Reimagine Education? So this is a legacy project for us. This is something that we can look at and feel good about, that we are building the future of our students. And we were tasked to come and show you the impact of home ownership, of what the public would see if they were to come and vote on a bond. So my next few slides have to do with doing math in front of people. And I actually went to summer school, 9th grade, 10th grade, and junior year for math. So I'm going to walk through it as best I can. So
Remember, Skylar forgot. Like
I know,
couldn't
few,
even get
at
the
least,
dollars
right?
and
Like
cents
Skylar
right
forgot.
just recently. So
And I majored in finance.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for making me feel better. The first step is to look at home ownership, and this is by zip code. So it's anywhere, there's a range in home ownership. So 50316 averages about $135,000 per average home value, and 50312 is about $300,000. There are some zip codes that you won't see in here, and that would be a 50318, because it is a code with no residential addresses. It's completely urban, and it's only businesses and PO boxes. So I went through and had to figure out where some of them were missing and what that meant. So there's no 50318. The average home value in Des Moines is $207,000 to $211,000, and that is based on all of the home sales and the different zip codes. So it's 207 to 211. If I can show then.
Clarify, is this
Yeah.
using Polk County assessor data when you say that? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, so it's just going through bunches and bunches of data, but Polk County Assessor's data is part of it. Correct. So let's look at the summary here of what this means. So 50317 is a pretty average home ownership. The average home cost in 50317 is $214,000. So if the voters approve a $500 million general obligation bond, the average homeowner would pay an additional $381 in taxes, and that's an annual tax, so it would be split in two. So the first tax bill is $160, the second tax bill is $160. And so the additional cost would be used to repay the bond over the timeline. So bonds are a 20-year timeline for a 10-year general obligation bond. So that's something to note as well, where it's not just 10 years and you're done, it extends longer. And this is addition to your current property taxes. So whatever your taxes are, you're going to then see an additional levy on top of those taxes. And there are, in the next slide, then, this is what an impact summary looks like. So over on the top columns, you see the different amounts of bond. So anywhere from 100 million to 500 million. Then the debt service tax rate. So that's the levy rate of what people will pay for the general obligation bond. So it's a chart where the left-hand side is the amount of assessed value for homes. So it's not the market value, it's the assessed value. And we know that assessments go up and down and all sorts of things, so that's something to keep in mind when looking at this. So they will take, if you have a $200,000 home, they will take your assessed value then at $150,000 or whatever it is, even though I think I can maybe sell it for $500,000. So that's a big distinction to know. They're going to take your home's assessed value and use the taxable rollback, which is up there, the 47.4316%, and that is what you will be taxed at. So that number then is what you will pay for times the levy rate for your additional property taxes. So if we look at a $500 million bond in our previous example, $500 million bond in homeowner 50317 at a $214,000 home, it's going to fall right in between 381. So it's between 356.46 and 445.57. So that's right where that falls in for that homeowner.
And just to clarify something you said, so this is, how many years are people paying that sum of money?
20 years.
Or the duration of the bond while the bond is still active?
Here comes Mr. Shashank. Pause.
So the life of the bond normally that we issue is for 20 years, even though the project which Amanda is sharing is spread over 10 years. The life of the bond is 20 years. Okay.
So, thank you, Shashank. So, board, I also want to sort of serve as a reminder, the highest amount to the right, which is the $500 million proposal, is exactly where we landed after, again, more than 16 months with the Reimagining Education Committee. We created the 10-year Reimagining Education plan that, again, includes what we've shared on a couple of different occasions, and that is to make sure that we are updating all of our buildings that will be impacted by this major capital project. Wanted to make sure that we were really being thoughtful about operational versus functional capacity, which means that the buildings needed some upgrades. And also thinking about how can we upgrade some of our buildings to accommodate some of the changes in programs, such as keeping our sixth grades in elementary schools. That is the 10-year plan at a proposed cost for the scope of work that we've looked at $500 million. But I know, having been a part of some listening sessions recently, and I know you all, while you were invested in championing this project alongside us, you've also been very thoughtful about impact on the community. And as a board, you've made that very, very clear to us that while you are supporting us with this ambitious goal and plan, you also want to be thoughtful about impact on taxpayers and community. They're invested. And so the team and I just wanted to bring this to you all today. I know we'll talk a little bit about the timeline in terms of what happens next. And so I would want, let's jump to the final slide, if you may.
You bet, sir.
Is that helpful, Amanda?
Yep, it is up. So
Good.
here,
And so, yeah.
Go on, Dr. Roberts.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, you got it.
So here is the bond referendum. So we know that we're looking at a shortened timeline as we continue here. So our next board meeting is July 8th, and that's when we'd like to have everything wrapped up for you. And so then we can start to get, not meaning me, but the campaign could start to get signatures for the campaign for the filing of the resolution on September 19th. So I know that we're going to hit the ground running on July 9th, knowing that everything will be wrapped up, and we want it to be perfect because, again, this is legacy work that we're going to feel real proud of when we're done.
So let me thank you, Amanda. Let me build on that board. The team and I are asking of you tonight is, given the timeline that we have, knowing that at the July 8th meeting, we want to be able to finalize our bond language, what is your reaction to our continued movement towards going after and requesting a $500 million bond for this 10-year scope of work? I know you've also seen a couple of other options that we've proposed to you all in terms of changing the scope of work. So what is your desire? What is your reaction?
So I want to take one step back before we take two steps forward. So, because I do think it is really important that you get a sense of the board and where the board is and how we're feeling about a $500 million number. So I'm clear, it's also helpful to understand what you're getting for that amount of money. And so can you refresh my memory? The board has seen a plan that was outlined over 10 years and costed at 500 or 683?
So there are different, the estimated construction costs, additions, renovations, and new buildings. This is the estimated cost shown in the work elements to be funded by the GO bond. We know that if we get a $500 million bond, there will be that gap between the 683 and the $500 million bond that we will be able then to help try to redistribute SAVE and PEPL because some of the projects coincide.
Okay. And we haven't yet seen a plan that shows how SAVE and PEBBLE is part of this. And I only bring that up because that's a significant question that taxpayers are also asking.
Absolutely.
Which is, that is something that they've supported, so understanding it. So I know you want a decision on a number, and I think for me, I still think it's helpful to understand, like, we're deciding on not just a big concept, but the elements of the concept. And so you're asking us to basically say, remember the 10-year plan that we showed you? That's about $500 million. Then we've got some PEBBLE and SAVE thrown in there. That helps us get closer to the 683.
Yes, that will help us get closer to the 683
number. And the bond language that you're going to want us to approve the first week in July, I think there's a desire, I know on the part of my part, I don't know others, to have some specificity in it in terms of the bond language. So I just want to make sure that's the where we're going. So the bond language that we're going to be approving will be with some specificity.
It will be.
Okay. So,
ma'am, if I could, just for a minute, I think because it is a 10-year bond, many things happen within the 10 years that I think we all can't anticipate. So we want to be specific enough that we can still get the things, but not as so specific that if a pandemic happens and the whole world turns upside down, that we're still in this place with this same bond language. So it's walking that fine line between absolutely, we want to be specific enough and we want to tell everyone Roosevelt's getting a 12 classroom edition, Lincoln's getting a 12 classroom edition, and here are the years that are going around through it. But I also know that if we were to enter, some unforeseen circumstance, that there is some small wiggle room, and I might get in trouble for saying this because I know that we can't plan for the future in all of the things that we've seen over the last 10 years. So yes, ma'am, we want to be specific enough.
So if it's okay with everybody, why don't we take this in two parts, right? So I think the first thing is we are all super excited about this and want this to move forward. And I'm assuming that our board continues to remain committed and wanting to go into our community and seek a bond because we're all ready to go. So I think the real question is, how much do we think our community can handle?
Yes, ma'am.
In terms of expense? And so let's just do tactical questions first. Do people have any questions specifically about the information that was presented? So how much a taxpayer would be asked to pay? Because I do think that is really important. At the end of the day, this is what can our community bear. The one question, and I might have to ask Shashank to join if you don't know this, is there any forecasting of how state changes to property tax, municipal, any of the changes that we potentially anticipate in the legislative landscape that might change this number in any way or impact our taxpayers in a way that we aren't thinking about, right? So we're looking at a number, but is there anything that might change that number over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
So we saw the discussion that happened on property taxes this season. And the loss that I have seen is that the governor and the legislators are pretty serious about making some changes. So they have tabled it to discuss it over the summer, and they'll bring it back next year. I have not seen what kind of changes they are thinking of, but based on what was being discussed, getting it approved this year would probably be beneficial, because there was also a time when they said they may not allow you to increase your property tax rates. So the amount, I'm not certain what we want to go out for the bond with, and we will look for board for guidance on that. But I think it'll be good that we get some kind of bond approved.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, let's see where people's heads are. And again, this is kind of in the abstract, right? So, but let's just kind of get a sense of.
I can
I'll
start.
speak last, yeah.
Thank you for this information. In the most simple terms, I say let's go for it. I think this was the one piece of information that was missing for me, was translating this big vision, this big idea to everyday people and how it's going to impact them directly. So now that we have the information, I am excited. I know I don't sound excited because it's hot, but I am very excited about this, and I say let's go for it and move forward.
I want to follow up. Are you saying go for and move forward? And if we can put this slide that actually has the tax projections on it, are you recommending that we move forward at the
500.
Okay. Other comments?
You know, I've been excited for this for a very long time, so I am on board. And once again, thanks for everybody that has worked really hard on this. And yeah, I'm ready to move forward.
What number are you thinking, Miss Anna?
Agree with Skylar.
So I guess I'll be a little meh. I mean, I definitely have followed bonds throughout our state. I've been watching Cedar Rapids try this many times. What is it, a 50% or less chance of a bond even passing, like in general? And so I think that my recommendation would be that we do our homework. I think, Dr. Roberts, we sat in a room when we first started talking about this idea, and I was sort of like, I don't like to lose. And you were like, I don't either, right? I'm an Olympic athlete. I will win. So I would rather see us go out, if we're going out with confidence, great, but this is a lot of money. I mean, I'm not gonna just sugarcoat it, and this is a tough economic environment, and I think that we should just, it's hard for me to look at this spreadsheet and be like, of course, everyone should be happy to spend an extra $1,000 a year or whatever it is on the students, which I believe in as well, but we should be smart about it so we're successful and we get something versus absolutely nothing, which is what the other option is. Just my 2 cents.
Thanks. Mr. Dix?
I guess I'm mindful of where we are right now in terms of uncertainty and where the bond markets are and how people are thinking about their future financially. And And so I think a $500 million bond is, it is a bold vision. I think it's a big ask. You can look at it and you can say it's $1 extra a day. It's essentially $1 a day on average if you use the example that that we did sort of in the median. But I think about that $500 million ask and I'm trying to play the tape to the end. And I know that there will be groups who, no matter what, it doesn't matter what the ask is, it doesn't matter how good it is, they will be against it. And so I'm trying to think ahead to that conversation and being transparent about the fact that we don't know what it's going to look like 10 years from now.
Correct.
And how that will impact public sentiment. There is a really good group of people who has paid a lot of attention to this over the last 6 or 8 months in particular as we've discussed it. There will be a broader electorate that will see this for the first time this summer, and they will not even know what reimagining education is. And I worry that an argument will be made by a group of people who just do not want to see taxes raised. That's a legitimate a point of view for sure, but that will be their stance. And I worry that in shooting for $500 million, we will miss our opportunity to move this district forward in a significant way with a $300 million bond. And so that's my caution to my colleagues, and I want a $500 million bond. I think it would be useful. I am worried about what the conversation would be in the community, just in the climate that we're in right now. So I think I share Ms. Knox's apprehension about going for the $500 million here. Seeing this table, it feels reasonable to ask taxpayers once every 70 years to spend $1 a day for 10 years or for 20 years to rebuild their schools, because that investment will come back to us. I think that's a reasonable thing. I think that not everyone will share my opinion, so I'm cautious about this.
What I love about this conversation.
Yeah, you are. Now you're not.
Hello.
Just give it a second. Press it and then wait.
Hello.
Now you're on.
What I really like about this conversation is it's more complex than just a number, right? Because I've heard there's both the cost to our taxpayers, there's the we have to get 60% of our voters to support this to get it done. And I think there's also an undercurrent of we deserve every dollar to help our kids. And maybe we need to take this big, bold vision and take a big first step and prove to our community that we can nail it to set us up to take maybe the second big step. And so I think both things are really important, right? Where our community is in terms of sentiment to vote on this, and that's real. I mean, I think the economic conditions are real. I will say I did speak with our other board colleagues who weren't here, and I think we all have one thing in common. We want to ask for the $500 million. I think the reality is that I think there's probably board consensus to go for $250 million. Okay. And I should say 250. I guess the question is 250 versus 300 million. What I feel like I'm hearing is a lower number than 500. I shouldn't assume that it's just half of that. Maybe it would be helpful to better understand if you go back to the first slide. What exactly, if we kind of said to you, could you come back to us and tell us what a $250 million bond versus a $275 million bond? Skylar, I recall we had a conversation and there was some discussion about, ideally, how does it feel for the average taxpayer if they're at $199 or less in terms of tax right? And so I think my recommendation, and I kind of, this is where I'm supposed to build consensus. I'm looking around at the board table. I'm thinking about the conversations that I've had with the board, and I think that there is high energy to move forward, but a desire to be incredibly respectful of our taxpayers and ask them for a number that is closer to 250 million to 300 million. How does that feel to?
I think the concern is when you get out to year 8 of this plan and you only have a set amount of money and everything from year 1 to 5 costs a third more than you thought it did, that impacts year 8.
Yeah.
And so that's my issue with the.
Let's get some feedback from Dr. Roberts, because Dr. Roberts, in essence, we are actually asking you and the team to go back to the drawing board and come back to us with a plan that might look a little different.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Board, for the discussion, certainly encouraging. I have 3 reactions, right, because I think I'm hearing these 3 things. The first is the board clearly is even more excited today than you were 2 weeks ago about this plan that is going to change just the face of public education for generations, for students who are knocking on our doors. And so glad that excitement and enthusiasm is still there. The second thing that I'm hearing really loud and clear is just your empathy and consideration of our community members and taxpayers. And that's important, right? While the team and I in the Moore Public Schools, it's not that we were devoid of thinking about the impact on taxpayers, but you're highlighting that even more for us right now. And I value that. So you're saying to us, look, we're on board, we want to support this plan, but we want to be thoughtful about how it impacts taxpayers in this sort of economically volatile environment. And then the third thing that I'm hearing, which is the charge to us, is go back to the drawing board and come to you all by the July 8th board meeting with probably 1 or 2 models that shows what will we get for a $250 million or a $300 million bond. Because $500 million right now, while it's great, doesn't seem like the right strategic approach as we're considering the energy that we've already gotten from taxpayers around. We want to support you all, but now how will this affect us financially? So that's what I'm hearing.
I think you captured it accurately. I think the other additional information that would be helpful is if this is the direction that the board chooses to go with a plan that is smaller, how are we thinking about the rest of the work? Because a big, bold plan for 10 years, our public, our community is going to be wondering, okay, well, you're not going to get all of it done just yet. How do we think about other things that were identified in the 10-year plan, and what is the status of those? And I think that's going to be really important as well, to understand that piece of the puzzle and how we're considering
Absolutely.
that outstanding body of work as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if I could just get some clarity, you would like to see 250, 275? Ms. Norris, you said once?
I threw out those 2 numbers. I think part of it was trying to find some middle ground. And I'm open, right? So if somebody wants to do the math real quick, like what is 275? What would be the burden on the taxpayer? I think I don't have that number handy, which is why I suggested 250 or 275.
I think
Madam Chair, Board. Go ahead, sorry, Anna, yes.
That's okay. I think a previous conversation I had with Matt, he was putting at the 3 range. And I'm fine with that.
Look at the slide. Can we look at the slide?
Yeah, which slide?
The one that would tell us a $250 million bond versus a $300 million bond and tax implications.
There you go.
May I offer, will it be helpful if we come back to the board again by the July 8th meeting with 2 models that also includes the tax burden, one at 250 million and one at 300 million?
Yeah.
I think that's good if that feels comfortable to you, Dr. Roberts.
It does.
Yeah. What?
Wonderful.
What other, I do feel the need to relitigate just one more thing around bond language specificity.
Absolutely, ma'am.
And Amanda, you and Dr. Roberts may decide that this is something we want to have on July 8th. I still think I'm trying to understand this being nimble versus being specific.
Yeah.
Because we are selling a vision to our community, and our community is going to have expectations. So they want to understand what they're getting for $250 million or $300 million. And so there's some, I clearly like the term healthy tension tonight, but if I'm a taxpayer, I want to know what I'm getting for that.
Right.
And there's us saying, oh my gosh, trying to predict 5 years from now, so many things are changing so quickly. And I'm looking for just a little bit more clarity on what it is the district is going to be providing to the board to take a look at that finds that balance between specificity and adaptability.
Yes, ma'am. I think we would rely on our partners at Allers to help craft that language and guide us in that, because you're hitting the nail on the head of what we need, the specificity of building and setting a vision, but also knowing that we can never predict the future.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest then that I know that Mr. Dix, myself, and Dr. Mayberry Mays have been part of the smaller reimagining planning, that you engage the board and get some feedback so we can do our best to reflect the sentiment of the board so we don't slow ourselves down and only have this conversation on July 8th, because it's just going to take longer.
That is.
So is
Very
that okay
good.
with you, both of you? Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful. We'll
Perfect.
reach
Thank
out and get
you.
some time set up.
Madam Chair, I think it's important in this discussion to also remind everyone who's watching this and everyone who's here that there is the if this bond doesn't pass scenario. And I think looking at that and being honest with ourselves about what that means for the district should be part of everybody's calculus. And I think we're going to say this 1,000 times between now and November, because it looks like we're headed for a bond no matter what. But if you are a voter in the Des Moines Public Schools, if you are a homeowner, if you are eligible to vote and you're not coming out for this one, this is about the next 40 years of our community and how well we train our citizens. And so I don't think there could be anything more important, but this is one where we need everybody who doesn't normally vote to educate themselves about this, form an opinion, and then come out and vote for it, because it's just, nothing could be more critical. And so I think we all have to think about what will happen if we don't pass this bond at whatever level we decide as well. Because I think that's something that should be a real part of everybody's calculus in this.
I really appreciate that. And I guess I do feel the need to say out loud, we made a prudent decision.
Yeah.
We made a prudent decision, but that also means that we are going to, at the same time that we're coming to our community to ask for money, we're also going to be making some hard financial choices in FY for the next set of fiscal years. And so there is going to be an interesting trajectory, because we are trying to bring in new, and at the same time, we are going to have to be making some tough cuts. And
This doesn't solve the problem.
it does not solve the problem. And so we'll leave that to Dr. Roberts and others, maybe to better explain what the stakes are in choosing to support or not support that, because I think that's the message that you're trying to make, Mr. Dix. Board colleagues, anything else you would like to say on this? Dr. Roberts, are we good?
We are good. Thank you, board.
Amanda,
We
thank
have
you
the
very much.
charts ready to go.
Very good. Look forward to
Great.
see you on July
Okay,
8th.
thank you so much. We are now moving to items of privilege. Board members, is there anything you would like to share?
I have one recognition. I know we often recognize educators and schools that are doing great things. And I was sad to see that this person was not in the audience today. I think they've been to more board meetings than maybe myself. But Miss Deborah Carr, there was recently a press release out acknowledging Miss Deborah Carr for her contributions to social work, community advancement, and professional excellence, and being inducted into the Phi Alpha Honor Society. But in addition to many of our teachers, they do their jobs and our educators in the schools every day within Des Moines Public Schools, but then they also are doing many other things. And I think it's important sometimes to recognize those things as well. A few of the things that they listed within that press release were that Ms. Carr's achievements include not only working in the school district, not only being spending 40 years of impactful leadership within social work, but also included founding Miss Black Iowa USA pageant. Those types of things you just don't know by watching people watch us. So wanted to give a shout out to her, and like I said, sad that she's not in the audience today, but I know she's probably watching.
Thank you.
As we embark on this summer, I wanted to encourage my school board colleagues and everyone watching to mark October 18th on their calendar for our 6th annual One Run. The DMPS Foundation has hosted this event for 6 years. It's raised over $150,000, and everything that is raised at One Run goes directly back into our schools. We are very excited to expand registration this year to include our preschools. So dollars raised will support preschool through middle school. And again, your participation determines how much money goes back to your school or a school you want to support. Or you can say, pick a school for me, and we will select the school that has the least number of participants to have your dollars go there. Also new this year, we are going to invite our community to help us in fundraising. So when you sign up, you also have the opportunity to make a donation yourself and become a fundraiser. So we've all seen them on social media. You can say you're raising money and help us just increase that pot of money that's going to go back into our schools. We are also seeking sponsorships, and Kaylee, I had the ones up that we've gotten, but then I clicked out of them. So we'll be recognizing our wonderful sponsors. We already have 4 on the board and many more that are coming. And so we are seeking sponsorships. We are going to have tons of fun activation stations and community engagement opportunities that your company or family or heart can help to sponsor and make possible for this wonderful day. So October 18th, you can go to the foundation's beautiful new website that I just lost also, dmpsfoundation.org, to learn more.
Thank you. I have 2 very brief things. One is a shout out to Capital View. I am really excited. The Iowa After School Alliance, in partnership with Capital View, is working on a family engagement project where they're bringing family members with their kids. It's this summer, and working with parents to encourage them to bring literacy strategies home. And so they are, it's a compensated pilot, and there's food, and it's really an opportunity to give parents who may not have the ability to come easily to learn about how to work with their kids and how to read. And I think attendance is really good. And I just want to shout out, trying different things like that is how we're going to get more parents to help grow literacy in our kids. The second thing is, this is actually Susie Tellman's last official meeting, and I'm just want to acknowledge all of her hard work to DMPS. We're very lucky. At the same time, Josie Lewis is here, who will be taking over that role, and so just want to introduce Josie and welcome you when the time comes. So thanks to both you for joining DMPS, and thanks to Susie for all of her years of hard work. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Roberts for his final comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, I wish that was in person, because I want to build on what you just shared, and that is I want to have Susie Tallman, who has spent, I think, almost 40 years in the district. She started when she was 3 years old, she tells me. And so I want to thank her for her service. More importantly, I want to thank her for being just an incredible and remarkable teammate to me as a new superintendent. And I know that she's handing over the reins to a dynamic hire in Mrs. Josie Lewis, and so happy to welcome her on board as well. And as we get ready to go into the next fiscal year, right, on July 1, knowing that the board has continuously pushed us around making sure that we are making the right decisions around our fiduciary responsibility to get to this place of fiscal soundness and fiscal health. And so that is on top of mind for the team and I, the CFO, business and finance team, and I. And then finally, we're coming back with much excitement on July 8th to bring you two models around what will Reimagine Education look like, because we're going to continue to build on this momentum. And so to hear from you, Board Member Dix, around the charge to our community to invest not only in a 5-year or a 10-year plan, but this is a reimagining of education and reinvigorating of our schools that will last for a generation. So thank you all for your continued support.
All right, with that, we are going to We are going to end this meeting. I'm looking for a word. Adjourn this meeting. Thank you. We are going to adjourn this meeting at 8:59 p.m. The board is going to take a brief break, and we are going to move into a closed session on the topic of personnel. So, board members, 5 minutes?
Yep.
You got it? I'm going to set my timer. Okay.
5 minutes.